Meeting to order. This is the Finance Subcommittee of the Holyoke City Council. My name is Joe McGivern. I am the chair. To my right, Peter Tallman. To my left, Kevin Jourdain. And to his left, Will PUELLO. Let me get this right one of these days, really, huh? I know. We have one missing member who I believe is going to be joining us by Zoom shortly, Juan Anderson Burgos. We are on Zoom, we are live on TV, we are being taped, we are being recorded, and we are being streamed. If that all said, item number one.
Motion to take item number one off the table. Discussion.
Motion made, second to take item one off the table. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So moved. This is a request for a transfer in fiscal year 2022 for $2,000 from property maintenance demolition supervisor to head clerk, same amount. This appropriation transfer was requested, signed off by the mayor as necessary, and requested by the building department. On the motion to take off the table, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So moved. We have our building inspector with us, Damian Cody. Damian, welcome. Can you hear us?
I can.
Okay, and we can hear you. Would you like to walk us through this?
Sure, just really quick. So our property maintenance and demolition supervisor resigned last month, and so it's a vacant position currently. So there will be a surplus, and we have had a little bit of extra work for our head clerk. So not a lot, and that's why the small transfer, just to cover the rest of the year. They're part-time, so there is a little bit of flexibility in the hours worked, typically 20 hours, but if they work another hour or two a week, it pecks away at the need.
Damian, I know you've been having, like everybody, having difficulty across the state filling these positions, but if you do find someone to fill it, will you have enough money left in the line item to pay the rest of the year?
We would, but I don't suspect we're going to do that before the end of the fiscal year.
Thank you. Any discussion?
I'll make a motion to be approved.
Motion made second to approve the transfer. Is there any further discussion? If not, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So moved. Damian, thank you. And you're welcome for item number one.
Yeah. He didn't get it.
You don't have anything else, right?
I don't think so. I went through it, but thank you.
Okay, no, thank you.
Have a good night.
Item number two.
Make a motion to remove it from the table.
Motion made second to remove item two from the table. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? This is in accordance with Mass General Laws 44, Section 53A. The City Council will accept the provisions of the automated external defibrillator equipment program. It's a $2,420.42 with no match grant. This, we would be, if accepting it, also authorizing a fund and method appropriate for the accounting of the receipts, expenditures, and all resources of the said grant. The item's been removed from the table, and we have with us, I know we have the mayor with us, I believe,
For the police.
Chief, this is with the, with your department, and I see John Hart is on the line. Okay. John or Chief, would you like to lead us through this?
You got the mic on?
I believe the chief is there. I thought he was going to talk about it.
He's here, John.
Okay.
Chief Pratt, do you want to come in and sit? Yeah, come on in. Yeah, it's more comfortable. It's not that hot tonight.
Yes, so this is a grant to place another defibrillator into one of the cruisers. I have Sergeant Hart on standby if there's anything I can't answer about it, but it's a no-match grant. And, our goal is ultimately to get them into all the cruisers, but this will get us started.
Okay. How many do you have right now?
We don't have any in the cruisers.
This will be the first one.
Yes.
It's a good start. Any
Start
questions
somewhere.
for?
Who's giving you the money?
That'll be the state. It was a state grant for just one defibrillator.
Okay. All right, sounds good. I'll make a motion that it be approved.
Motion made second to approve the acceptance of grant and all the accounts and methods appropriate for the accounting of the expenditures of said grant. Is there any further discussion? If not, all those in favor? Any opposed? So moved. Thank you. Chief, if you and John can hold on, I purposely put your other order after the free cash discussion. Not a big deal, but there might be some questions related to why, the free cash and the type of expenditure you're looking for.
No problem.
Thank you. Item number 3.
Motion to take item 3 off the table?
Motion made, second to take item 3 off the table. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So moved. Off the table is a request for a transfer fiscal year 2022 from, we already did this one, right?
3 is, well,
I'm just getting mixed up here. Sorry. Item 3, introduced by Councilor PUELLO. This is a request that the mayor's office to provide the current list of businesses for the ARPA funding that came through city business grants and each dollar amount awarded to include rejected applicants. This was referred to our committee back in March 15th. It's off the table for discussion. To the maker of the order, would you like to start off?
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Chairman, and I thank the mayor for all the movement that we saw on the ARPA money. I know he published a couple lists. I did get some questions about it from some specific business owners down in the ward. So I told them I'd follow the order. I let them know that tonight it was up for discussion, and we're here to see what we got. Thank you.
Mayor, did you want to weigh in at all?
What am I weighing into? ARPA? Number 3. It's good to see you.
Josh, maybe would you like to come in, or whichever, city councilors don't get laptops,
Yeah. Unless Councilor Rivera gets his way, we might be getting something better than that, Use your poll, Councilor Rivera. All right. Matter of fact, I'm going to file an order. You're here so much, I'm going to get you your own golden desk. So we're going to have the mayor's plate and everything. This is great. We've been spoiled. Yeah.
good stuff. Good stuff.
What do we want to know?
Item 3 on our agenda. Why don't you break it down for him, Councilor?
Yeah, so just what the order says. I mean, I was hoping we'd get a list or something maybe that we could provide to constituents. I did see the breakdown with the approved ones. I was wondering if there was a list with maybe rejected, maybe like a little bit of dialogue of what the thought process was for selecting what businesses got the money.
So the list that's in front of you was what I inherited before stepping in, funds that were committed to several different projects offered through Alicia. But yeah, we'd have to get you a much more updated version based on who spent what to date and other projects that didn't come to fruition or whatnot. And that's kind of the ongoing oversight that Alicia offers over those that were awarded grants, check in compliance and see who's expended what to date and whatnot. So, but there hasn't been any other further beyond that ARPA money's committed to anything besides the one, or actually the first half of $900,000 for the retention incentive for employees. The other half of the ARPA money, we're anticipating to get around June. It's about $14 million or so. And there's a process currently that Alicia and I are developing to start executing, hopefully in the very near future, how we're going to commit those funds. But nothing has been committed yet.
Is there going to be a second round for businesses? Another one?
Yeah, so ideally, yes. But then again, it's still all in the air. We would want to solicit some very similar to kind of how you guys went through it the first time around, project proposals. I think it was about $800,000 that was committed to local businesses. We'd like to do that again. If there's a demand for more or higher amount, let's consider that. Let's talk about it through the different committees that are involved. But the goal, just so you're aware, and I'm sure it's a shared goal with the councils, rapid recovery, the greatest economic impact. We want to keep it strategic and focused on those two elements, those two variables.
Cool. Yeah, the questions I got from my constituent, I can talk to you offline about it.
Yeah,
Sure. I was hoping maybe we can get like a list or something.
Let me see.
Because I see item 3, They didn't give a list.
I was going to ask a silly question perhaps, but did he accidentally get my list? Because if you go to item 14, that is not what I had asked for, but I have a list. And I'm trying to figure out, they just gave me a list of projects that were spent on CPA, and then there was another list of businesses that I'm wondering if somehow these ran into each other. See, if you take a look at handout 14 in the packet, right, and you go to pages 1 and 2, it has a list of all these different businesses on it.
Oh, you're right.
That has business names and addresses on it. And I'm wondering, that has like nothing to do with my order. My order was, what, in your opinion, Mayor, do we have for CPA historic preservation repairs that are needed on public buildings? And all I got was a list of businesses and addresses. Who knows what that's about?
It's all cannabis.
Cannabis.
Yeah, it's all cannabis.
Okay, well, that has nothing to do with my order. And then the next one is, it was a list of projects that they did in the past for CPA, and that has nothing to do with my order. So okay.
That's what I sent to you. I don't know what the other stuff was about, but the list of projects through CPA, so you can come over and see what public building related projects were funded, yeah.
Yes, which is nice to have, but what the order had requested was a list of what public repairs on public buildings, i.e. repairs on Scotts Tower, repairs on City Hall, the Annex, Wisteria Hearst, all these are there parks that are needed, like any of these public projects?
You mean like future projects that are eligible
Yeah,
for
yeah,
CPA?
because one of the concerns is that, and I think, and I was locked in with something that Councilor Rivera had made the point of, is we have no public projects being requested right now for CPA, that we're now on to non-public projects because there's no standing list of public needs. So the question is, I tend to agree with that based on what my review is, like, they can't give public money to public projects if there's no wish list.
Yep.
So that's where I wanted that to be formed so that we can start shooting some of
And I
this
think
money that way.
ideally, right, and we're going to get there where
Okay.
we want to obviously leverage CPA funds to support public projects. My guess is the reason why it hasn't been, it could be capacity issue, it can be,
Okay.
some of these no plan. I know right now, and there will be, there is a plan in public infrastructure upgrades as far as City Hall and the Annex is concerned. And there's a good number of those identified in that plan that is eligible for CPA, and we've talked about that. But yeah, we can sit down and make a wish list of a bunch
Yeah.
of things, sure, for sure, that are CPA eligible, and I won't be shy at all to
Please
spend
don't be.
CPA money on public buildings.
We appreciate that. Yeah, so that, okay, you answered the question. We'll take up the rest of it when we get to item 14. I don't want to.
Mr. Chair, Mr. McGivern, if I can.
Councilor Rivera.
Thank you for bringing that up, Kev. So, in my experience, right, usually the department heads are the ones that apply. And I'm not trying to make any excuses for anybody. So, like for Parks and Recs, when I was on the commission, when we did the Mayor Field project, which is about to come to fruition, hopefully whenever we receive the actual equipment, it's been paid for, we're just waiting for it to come so that it could be installed. That was a Parks and Recs director initiative with the commission. The commission ourselves, we identified Mayor Field as one of the spots, and we advocated to CPA to say, hey, listen, that's the park we want. So this current application, it was supposed to be Jones Point, but the issue was that we didn't have a current parks director, and because we didn't have a current parks director, it was too much for the commission to take on. In the future, the idea is to identify different parks that don't fall within CDBG to try to apply for it to get them upgraded through CPA, because CPA is another avenue to be able to upgrade these parks that don't fall in the CDBG encatchment zone. At least that's the avenue I've taken.
Makes sense.
Through Parks and Rec, because I feel like the whole city should have parks being upgraded, not just the ones that fall under CDBG.
Sure.
So I guess for like the particular building here in City Hall or City Hall Annex, I think department heads, if they come together and put something together, obviously it's going to have to run through the mayor, but it shouldn't always have to rely on the leadership of the mayor on certain decisions. So like with the parks, for us, when I was on the Parks and Rec Commission, we took the initiative to push for that, and we let the mayor know that that's what it was.
Right.
Because I feel like if you sit around and you wait, sometimes you might just not get the results you want. But that was just to add to, or at least clarify some of the processes.
Yeah, that's very helpful. If I might, Mr. Chairman, just last one sentence comment left on that is, perhaps the mayor will have to put the word out to the department heads, to your point, and say, you know, what are your needs? And I'm sure the DPW, who oversees public buildings, will have the biggest of all the lists, but, you know, hopefully soon we'll get that over the next month or two or whatever.
Okay. We are a little bit ahead of ourselves, which
Yes.
I understand the confusion because of the way the lists have been attached. If you would bear with me, seeing we opened up the discussion, but we will have it shortly. We will get to the items that are more connected with the CPA. But Megan McGrath Smith is with us. Megan, I see your hand raised, and I know we're going to be talking about this in a few minutes, but would you like to say something now?
I just wasn't sure if we had gone ahead to item 14. So the list that you got was from me. So I had created that list so that folks could see succinctly what we've done in the last 5 years. So thank you, Councilor Rivera, for bringing that point up, because I was going to raise that too. That they put in an application for eligibility for Jones Point Park. They were found eligible, but then never completed an application because of the issue with Terry Shepard retiring. And we pushed for it, right? We met with the we met with the Parks and Rec Commission. Like, we were really trying to get Jones Point Park to come forward, and they just weren't ready this time. But we did put forward $75,000 towards the Lady Liberty statue at Veterans Park, and we did put $125,000 forward for Wisteria Hearst. So those were the two main city projects this time. Later than usual because of the Jones Point Park piece not coming through, and also because I think we have some really big projects coming down the pike that aren't quite ready yet. So on our radar, you know, I think anyone who's looking at how we've been funding the Anniversary Hill and Scotts Tower phases, phase 1, phase 2, knows that that's coming down. In terms of, I think everyone's expecting CPA is going to play a really big role in helping Scotts Tower be revitalized and helping the Anniversary Hill Park to be revitalized. And I'm sure Wisteria Hearst is going to keep coming back to us for support. And then we also know that the City Hall and the Annex are coming down the pike as well. And the mayor did send the committee the most recent study from 2014 that detailed all the things that had to be done at City Hall so that we could begin the arduous process of looking at eligibility and what pieces of the project we might be eligible to do underneath CPA.
Thank you,
I did
Megan.
also want to say that out of all of the projects, 70% of the projects we've done have been city projects. And every single project that has been eligible, that has come to us from the city, we have recommended to City Council for funding.
Thank you. And we did kind of prematurely jump ahead unintentionally, but we appreciate the update. And when we get to the item, we'll already have your update. But thank you.
Sorry.
Chair wants to note that we've been joined by our fifth member, actually 2 items, 1 item and a half ago, Wanda Anderson Burgos. And we've also been joined on Zoom by our President of the City Council, Todd McGee. And we've just been joined, I think, by Cocaine Givner, Ward 4 City Councilor. Thank you all and welcome. We have a number of guests and we're going to get to everybody very quickly. Back to item number 3. This is about ARPA money. I'm hearing, Mayor, you're going to be able to get us some a list down the road. And
Sure. I don't know if you have any specific question on any particular project, or you're just curious.
No, so I see the list that you sent. I'm looking for, I see on the project overview, the specific list is for 2.9. It's a small business and economic assistance grant. And then the breakdown for that one, for 2.9. I think it's on the project overview report you just sent.
Oh, okay. I lost. I got to open it up again.
And I think it's 800,000. Yeah. So I mean, we can table it, or
Wait for the list.
I think so.
So what do you want to know how
I'd
much
like to have-
we've invested in small business support?
Yeah, so how much, what business got what dollar amount?
You want to know what businesses got how much through ARPA?
For the 800,000.
Okay. Sure. I don't know if there's any other questions beyond that that's of concern maybe? you have?
It may be applicants that were rejected too, if there's a list of people that didn't.
Yeah, so I would, and we can, if you want to do it in the form of a public meeting, sure, Alicia would be happy to come in and go detail by detail, but these are things that you can certainly accomplish with Alicia. She'd be happy to talk about the process, who didn't get it, and reasons why. And I can tell you that my office, obviously, when people don't get what they want, I get the calls. And when I look into it 99.9% of the time, it's legitimate. Yeah, sure, whatever you need.
I mean, we can comply it and get a list at some point, right? Can we do that too? And get a communication from the mayor's office? Just to move it out of the jacket?
However you want to deal with it.
If we feel it's been complied with, that means there's no further questions. There may be questions if the list comes in when we see it. So it's up to you.
Yeah, okay, yeah, we can table it.
All right. So we'll table it.
Yeah, motion
and,
to table.
The mayor and Alicia will work on the list. We have, certainly, Mayor, you've been very gracious to listen to our recommendations, probably more so than the Mayor Murphy. I shouldn't say that.
That's me.
Should be misunderstood.
Come on.
This way.
Mayor Murphy worked very quick, let's put it that way, with these dollars, and he did a great job of allocating them. But I think Council Perrello has some good questions here, and constituents are looking for some answers, I believe, and I think with the list, we can do that. So on the motion to table, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So moved.
Motion to take item number 4 off the table.
Motion made and seconded to take item 4 off the table. Item 4 is requested transfer for $12,285.45 from line item known as assessor into professional assessment, $11,917.45, $368 into printing binding for that total of $12,285.45. Recommended by passage, has been signed by the mayor, and we have our chief assessor, Debbie Burnell, here with us this evening. Deborah, would you like to join us?
Aye.
Welcome.
Sure the mic's
Would you like to walk us through this?
Yes, this is a transfer request from my old position salary to cover services of inspection on real estate and personal property that we've had to get a little bit of help with.
The surplus in your line item, not to jump ahead of you, but
Yep.
is because of the vacancy when Tony
Vacancy,
Duluth
yes.
left and then you moved up.
Yes.
Okay.
That's correct.
And then we have a lot of new city councilors. Can you just run over what the professional assessment is and how we every 3 years we have to get certified, right?
Well, it's every
So,
5 now.
Every 5.
Our
Wow.
next recertification is 2025. And right now, we're working towards our cyclical inspections, which we're at about 40% of. We need to be at 100% by late 2024. And because I'm only one person, I'm unable to accomplish all of this by myself. We were a little behind in the first place due to budget cuts over the years. So we need to get moving on this. Mayflower Valuations has been helping me out with this, and they've done a lot of the inspections so far, so we need to pay them for that service. We also need to pay Mayflower Valuations for the services they've provided on personal property and inspections and form of list and data entry. And the amount we owe them is the $11,102.45. And then I have my RDM software consultation, which is for the preliminary tax bill service to get the bills out for July 1st for preliminary billing. And that's for $1,300. So that's a total of $11,917.45 that would be transferred from the old salary to pay this. And then printing and binding services, which is for our tax valuation books, needs to be paid. And we were short $368 of covering that bill because of the deficit from the budget last year.
Thank you. Any questions? Councilor Jordan?
Yeah, thank you. Debbie, always a pleasure to see you. First question up is, I'm going to take one half of this transaction, then I'm going to,
Okay.
I have some questions on the second half. So with respect to the assessor, where the money is coming from, does it appear that you won't be able to fill the position for the remainder of the fiscal year?
I wouldn't think so for the remainder of the fiscal year. That's coming up. We have had the position posted for quite a while.
Okay.
We put it back up. We are trying to post it on the Massachusetts Assessors Association website. We're trying to get someone that's already qualified, that's perhaps already an assessor, so that there's less training involved.
Okay.
The training and education is quite lengthy, and I need the help now, so contracting a service to help us is great.
Right.
And I have to say, they're so efficient
Yeah.
in getting
Yeah.
things done.
Right, right. So will this drain the remainder of the money in the event that you did find somebody before July 1st?
No, it will not. I've checked with Tanya. We'll still have money there in case
Okay.
we get someone.
Okay, you do get a candidate for, say,
Yep,
a
and it
month-
would be
a month
enough
from
to
now?
cover. If they started tomorrow, it would be enough to cover them till the end of the year.
Okay, because I don't want to lose a candidate because we don't have the money in place.
Exactly.
You
Me
would-
either.
Yeah, you would obviously come in with a transfer.
Yes.
Are we getting some hits? Are we?
We've had
getting
two
some-
applicants.
Oh, two applicants?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Are we putting it out there for a headhunter
Well,
or any of these type of things?
It's been
to
on the
try
city website, it's been on Indeed,
Okay,
and it's going on the MAAO. I don't know where else personnel has advertised it.
okay, all right. Do you check in with them periodically
Oh,
to
yes.
see
I'm
on the
in constant
recruitment
contact with
process?
Kelly, yes.
Okay, all right. Good enough. And now, in terms of my questions relative to professional assessment, so we've been using Mayflower for some time now, and one of the questions I have is, are they the ones that you consult with relative to when the mall puts in for an abatement request, or if someone like the Plumbers Union puts in for an exemption as a school up on Lower Westfield Road? Do you consult with them?
Not on something like the plumbers situation, but we do talk to them about the mall as well as other people.
So, because I'm trying to understand like who you use as a professional advisor. These are complex things, and for you to have a loan, to have your own pulse on something like the Holyoke Mall's valuation, and when they're coming in for $20+ million reductions at a whack, and it's so financially devastating to us, quite frankly. The last one
It
on
is.
March 16th was quite a drop down. So who are you using as a professional service to help you in that?
Tony and I were working with the mall, our valuation company, and other reports we're getting from appraisers and people that have specialty with the malls across the United States.
Who's your professional company that you're using?
We're not using, well, we use Mayflower,
But they don't
didn't use
help
anybody
you
else.
with this, though, you said.
they give us some guidance, yes.
Okay. All right, so you are using them for this. Okay. So, are they qualified, you think, to evaluate malls, or do you think that we need to use someone like Patriot or these or other big firms? Because Mayflower is not the biggest firm in the world. And
No, they're not. Mayflower and the mall and us we didn't pay for services on it, but we used studies of what other appraisers and things have done with other malls. And across the country, in the state, we've used valuation, income and expense, just our walking through the mall and seeing what they have, going over their contracts and everything.
yeah, it's just such a specialty, and it's such an
It is.
expertise, and it's so
It is.
it's really something very complex. And I gotta say, I think you're underarmed for that type of a battle. on an abatement of that magnitude to be able, and you really need the resources, because if for nothing else, the taxpayers can have peace of mind to know that this was professionally evaluated and every possible stone was unturned. I mean, we're not talking chump change here. I mean, their valuation has gone down 50% over the course of a few years. And I mean, it isn't too often that someone comes in looking for $100 million in abatements. I think it's worth it to us to spend the money to have the type of assistance you need to evaluate these proposals, don't you think?
What they presented to us over the course of 3 years, we've been working with them for 3 years on their valuations.
Right.
They have presented to us reports from professional appraisers that specialize in malls and large retail.
Yeah, the advocate of it.
Right.
The mall's giving their proposal.
Yes, that they've paid for and everything.
Yeah.
They've presented all of their income and expense information to us, all of their details. I mean, this has been ongoing for 3 years. We've gone through so many details. They never received an abatement.
Mm-hmm.
Their valuations were lowered according to the proof that they gave us. If we want to spend the money to have a professional company come in and do an appraisal of the mall, that will cost us a very good chunk of change.
Would it cost?
I can get estimates if you'd like.
Would it cost more than $4 million?
Probably not, no.
No. Okay.
But
So
if
if somebody
you'd
was
like, I
going to
can
reach into
start
your,
reaching
if someone was
out.
going to reach into your pocket and grab $4 million out of it, would you just say, well, you know, they came in with a great proposal, and you know, it looked like all their I's were dotted and their T's were crossed. So I guess I'll just give them the $4 million.
It wasn't decided like that. They provided good proof to us.
I'm sure they did.
We were able to verify that proof by looking at the studies that have been done with malls across the country and looking at the stores our mall has lost and the income they have lost and the expensive they've absorbed. It wasn't just from COVID-19 that they've lost money. They've been deteriorating for many, many years.
I understand.
And our job is to tax the taxpayers, and they are a taxpayer. Tax them fairly for what they have. But I'm certainly open to having a professional assessment done on the mall if that is what
Oh my God, yes.
we want to have done.
Yes, I absolutely want to have that done. Let me make it on the record with bells, whistles, and fireworks. Yes, please, for the love
Okay.
of God, do that. Yes.
I
for
can-
let me tell you why. Again, I really appreciate you're super hardworking. You do a great job for us, and Tony too. But the fact of the matter is, it's you come in with, they make a proposal, they make a pitch, okay, and they come in with all their backup. That has to be scrutinized. I mean, this sounds, the kissing cousin to this is the sewer contract. Never once, now we're 17 years in, ever has been a professionally evaluated by an independent evaluator on behalf of the city with our interest. You can get these assessment firms that they come in, they're hired guns. They're going to come in and say, oh yeah, it's absolutely. We might be hearing from one later tonight, just looking for certain CPA monies too, okay? The people come in with their own advocates to make their case, but we can't just take that at face value. I mean, I just think it's not fair of the city to think that we can put that on you to have that expertise. You're here to have general expertise over
Right.
all of it.
Exactly.
And that's a specialty.
Okay.
So I would advocate that be evaluated. It's just so big.
Okay.
So the other one that I wanted to mention is the issue, and I'd like you to look into it, is relative to the plumbers union. When people say that they're a school, do we have somebody that checks to make sure statutorily they meet all the definitions of an educational institution?
Yes.
And that it's open to the public, to everybody, and it meets all the specific criteria, and they have all their I's dotted and T's crossed on that?
Yes, anybody that is a charitable organization has to apply with the state and then with us. They have to have all of the paperwork in place to be able to prove that they are actually a charitable organization
Yep.
through education, research, whatever category they fit into. But that is something specific that we do, and we're required to do that.
Okay. I'll discuss that one a little more with you offline. That's a more minor issue financially, but the mall one, since we were on the topic of the professional assessment, yes, Mayflower, this bill, fine, but I think we really, and I would encourage the mayor to sit with your office to go over what the needs are on the mall one, to see, do we feel comfortable on the $100 million reduction going forward? And then number two is, where is this going? I mean, when does it stop? I mean, they literally could come in tomorrow and say, yeah, I know we're at 120, make it 60. And what are we going to say? No. And then the fact of the matter is, I mean, maybe it's better off to go and if we've got a legitimate argument to fight it out in the appellate tax board. Because I don't think they're going to stop at 120. I think they're just going to keep going and just keep going. Why not? I mean, they've had no resistance to the first 100 million. So I just think that the incentive it would be that for them to continue to reduce it. So I just think we need to ramp up our professional services team to help you and to support your office, because I don't think it's fair to you and to your office to not have these services. So thank you. Obviously, I support this appropriation for professional, but we need more.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
Deb, I think Councilor Jordan makes a good point, but I would, before I went as far as advocating for it, I would like to understand what the cost would be. You and Tony experienced together, and Tony is still a voting member, if I'm correct.
Yes, he is.
You know, is something that's proven its weight in gold over the years. Not saying Councilor Jordan doesn't make a good point, because I think the mall, what's happening across the country is a scary situation, and I think the more we know about it, the better. I don't take the plumbers union as a small thing, though. I don't get the not-for-profit in the plumbers union. I'm sorry. You know, it doesn't make sense to me. You know, Bay State Hospital took over one of our newest manufacturing buildings in the city and took that off the tax rolls to put their lab there. Holyoke Medical Center buys houses and tears them down to expand parking lots instead of building a parking deck. It's time the city stands up and says, we're not against not-for-profit, but the oversaturation of non-for-profit entities in this city, and there's a good group of ladies sitting behind you are looking at me going, where's McGivern going, is killing us. You know, it's the saturation. It's not what each of these groups are about. They're wonderful. The saturation in this community, Yale Street is an example. You know, a beautiful single-family home taken off the rolls to be a hospital. You know, we've got to get recognition, and we've got to get into some type of different way of looking at this in terms of what we get to pay our operation costs as a city, whether it's streets, sidewalks, police, fire, schools. They all put a drain on our services in one way or the other, but we need to get something back. You know, the amount of land that we turn over for preservation land is incredible. Per capita, I think we have the most preservation land in the Commonwealth. You know, there's a formula for which the state does give us money for that.
Yes.
And they don't always live up to it, like they don't live up to the Quinn bill, but at least we get something.
Yes.
But,
If
sorry.
you'd like, I can send each of you the charitable exemption program that the state puts out, and you can look at what they need in order to qualify and what we need in order to qualify them. And I know where you're going with it, Joe, like that house on Yale Street. They do pay something to the city, I believe. Even though they are exempt, they pay a pilot. And that's something Mayor Morse tried to do many years ago, was make these charitable and exempt properties pay something, because they do receive services from the city, trash, police, fire. And all you could do is send them letters and ask them to pay. We cannot tax them if they meet the charitable requirements.
Understood. And on their own, I get it. The saturation is the point that it gets worse and worse and
Right.
worse. It's not getting better. And we could go into every, it's not just Yale Street, it's every group home in the city.
It is,
All wonderful.
There-
The best ones are run by DMH,
right,
but there's close to 20 of them.
right. There are some group homes in the city that do pay taxes, though, that don't claim a charitable exemption. They may be able to, but they don't, and they do pay taxes.
Well, that's because they have a landlord, if I'm correct.
I don't know what the reason is, but
Yeah,
they
because the
do.
landlord's making money.
But I would like to give you some education on it, so
Like,
you know what
you
we're doing.
We get taxes from juvenile court because the state doesn't own it. Someone makes
Right.
good money on that.
Yep.
Mr. Chairman, I was just.
Counselor Jordan.
Yeah, one last quick little point.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't in any way trying to say that in fairness, because I agree with everything the chairman just said, but I didn't want to leave the impression that I didn't think the plumbers thing was an important issue. It's
Right.
just that I have a particular way of thinking on it in looking at the statute that I'll take up with you personally offline. That's why I was sort of
Okay.
making that more minor, but
All right.
but it's something that I just want to make sure that you're getting the help and the resources you need to because you're getting a lot of these type of requests coming your way.
Yes.
So,
And I welcome any help that I can get.
okay. So you can, in fairness to what the chairman said, you could get us either an estimate. Obviously, we have to, you need the mayor's approval, our approval to spend these type of monies. But if you could put together a proposal with someone to provide these type of evaluation services for the mall and some of these other projects, I think we would entertain that to give you
Okay.
that type of support.
That would be the time.
Sure.
Yeah. That
I
would
will
be-
gladly look into that. For
Okay.
the larger retail establishments,
Yeah, let us know what it would cost to get that support.
all right,
Then we can see if it's available.
okay.
Yep, thank you.
I would love to be able to have that kind of support to value them fairly in the first place, rather than pay for the support after and have to pay for a solicitor to battle that with us at the appellate tax board.
Okay.
Because at my level, I would not be able to battle them at the appellate tax
Of
board
course.
myself.
Of course. Yep, thank you.
And don't anyone say that McGivern is against the plumbers union. That's not what I said. And I want to thank you, Deb, because I think you did this on the back of your application for the transfer. It's everything you just said tonight, the monies.
Yes,
Appreciate it, because not every department head does that.
thank you.
Councilor Rivera.
Thank you. I just had two questions. One is, how much does the position that's still open pay?
It starts at 53,000 something and goes to, I believe, 70,000 or
And
70.
then the other thing for me is the point that Councilor Jourdain made with regards to the mall. I would be in full agreement with like trying to hire an outside institution to come and oversee and help out if it can kind of guarantee us that the price is actually going to stay the same, right? So if we're going to pay $4 million for an outside entity to come in and help us with this, and they still get whatever it is, and then it ends up their taxes ends up still going down, then we just spent money for no reason, right?
Well, that's a possibility that
Right.
would happen.
Yeah,
They
could
would
happen,
be
yeah.
providing us
Not
with
$4 million, though.
fair
Even
valuation.
if it's $1.
It
If it's
could
$1,
go,
we
it
don't
could go
got.
down, it could go up, it could stay the same.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Yeah, Mr.
Councilor Jordan.
Yeah, the point is, first of all, it won't cost $4 million for the
No.
evaluation service, I
No, it
assure you that. But let's just say it cost $100,000.
Yep.
Which it very well may, right? Two things. One, you would have the peace of mind of knowing that what they came up with is right.
That's correct.
Number two, when people know that you're handing this proposal that I just handed you and it's being evaluated by somebody who, they may think twice about pushing the envelope a little too far, and it's just part of the due diligence process. You just got to have that when it's at this state, and who knows, they might be able to go back and say it went too far. that it shouldn't be 122 million or whatever it is now. It should be 146, and now you're ahead of the game. We don't know until you don't know, and
That's right.
you don't know what you don't know until
We
you
don't know.
until you evaluate it.
We
right?
don't know.
Yeah.
I will go back through some of the proposals on valuation that were sent to us on evaluations they've had on other malls that we used for our models, and see if I can use those companies as well.
Great, thank you.
Any further discussion on this transfer?
Make a motion to approve the transfer.
Second.
Motion made and second to approve. If there's no further discussion, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes 5-0.
Thank you.
Thank you, Deb. Appreciate it as always.
Thanks, Deb.
We have, actually, if the committee so chooses, we could probably do the next two items together.
Motion to take out, suspend the rules and take items number 5 and 6 together.
Motion made and
Second.
second to suspend the rules to take up 5 and 6 together. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Item 5 was submitted to us by the auditor and by the mayor. It's the state's free cash certification for fiscal year 2022. There's a series of explanations of this, which is 3 pages long. Our auditor is with us by Zoom. Excuse me. And item number 6 is a support submission letter by Mayor Garcia, which I will read quickly, if it's okay with the committee.
Sure.
Yep.
This was dated April 15th. Attached is the free cash certification. For the first time in years, the city council has a positive free cash balance of $2,382,813. Retained earnings in our sewer enterprise fund of $593,032. Although this is good news and a sign that the city is in a positive direction, we have a lot more work to do to ensure we have a strong fiscal foundation and direction. The free cash certification sheet, you'll notice $1,681,553 worth of deficits that are subtracted from our free cash potential. These deficits are a combination of different revenue accounts from previous fiscal years, some going way back. My goal is to build an internal control systems that ensures when it transitions from one fiscal year to the next, and any special revenue accounts that are left with a deficit within an existing fiscal year are balanced. Mayor Garcia has already told us that, and our auditor has already told us that, and we much appreciate both your efforts in this area, because it's the last 2 fiscal years has been a lot different. All these deficits have been on the books for such a very long time. Our city auditor has been aggressive with getting these balanced. We look forward to continuing to collaborate with the council, supporting transfer strategies to close these deficits. Goes on to say that the $2,382,813 available free cash certification to the city council, I will be presenting a plan on how we can make one-time investments using free cash. My plan will include a percentage to emergency stabilization, an amount to invest in ongoing catch-up work with the treasurer's office, an amount to invest in capital needs, an amount to be sent to a new stabilization account. An important note is of the availability of this free cash. $1,591,290.58 will be needed to transfer to the marijuana impact stabilization account. When the city collected the first round of impact fees before the special revenue account was available, the funds went to the general fund, which now reflected in the free cash balance. We have a host community agreements with the marijuana companies to commit the city to spend the money on eligible projects that mitigate community impact. For that reason, I also look forward to signing off on a transfer request to move these funds where they belong. Thank you to the city councilors. I look forward to presenting you the proposal soon. Attached is the free cash, signed Mayor Garcia. Mayor, welcome. Our city auditor is also with us on Zoom. Tanya, welcome. The committee will entertain the mayor or our auditor to have some opening remarks. And we do have one vote to take, or at least this evening we have one vote to take, which is, I believe in the past we've accepted the certification of free cash. I always called it reappropriation, but I'm always corrected when I say that, but I think it's more recognition than anything. And then down the road, Mayor, it'd be up to you, your prerogative, to put any proposed transfers or expenditures of free cash in front of us. Welcome.
Tanya, did you want to go first, or?
I'm happy to go through the figures with everybody. I didn't know if you had anything that you wanted to say regarding your letter first. Yes, no?
How about the chair will choose Tanya go first with the numbers, and then the mayor can follow up with it.
Okay, can you hear me okay?
We can hear you.
Okay, I'm assuming that everybody has the free cash calculation in front of them from the state. So the first, the unreserved, undesignated fund balance, that's actually revenues above and beyond that we budgeted of about $3 million, and unencumbered 2021 appropriations available for expenditure of about $1.6 million. So that's money that we actually just did not spend in 2021. The next couple of lines are our receivables, which they actually deduct from that figure because they're receivables that are in our deferred revenue but are not hitting our cash account at this point. So we cannot, count them in our fund balance. The next, I know we've had a lot of discussion about the special revenue account, the deficit of approximately $1.68 million. Those are deducted right away from our free cash. I can say on a positive note that approximately $990,000 of these deficits have been reconciled during fiscal year 2022. I can absolutely say the school has done a phenomenal job. They're following up, they're reconciling every day with my office, the police department, and we're working really hard. A lot of these things are very old, so we're gonna have to just keep plugging away at these. And then if you go to the last page, you can see our deferred revenue that's actually added back in that they are allowing us to claim on this free cash calculation, which gives us the $2.3 million in free cash. The deferred revenue that's included that they're adding in are things like deferred revenue for taxes, liens, fees, foreclosures, excise, and personal property and real estate taxes. It's the same. It's kind of the same for the retained earnings for the sewer, and it's including all their payables, but it's the same calculation in general. And one of the things I can say about the sewer enterprise with the free cash is we started collecting a lot of revenues that were outstanding, things that we couldn't collect because of the COVID epidemic. So we saw a lot of revenue come in, which we were very grateful for. I'm happy that the DPW is doing collections. They're following up, so we can see that in this free cash figure for them. And I don't know if anybody has questions.
If I could start with just a couple of general questions, Tanya, and I'm sure there are many questions or some questions. On the $1,681,553, the deficits. Each year we get a list of these deficits that I believe begins with the outside auditor, and then the DLS looks at it, and with your office, and verify that these are, and as you noted, most of them are prior year, many prior years, in some cases, deficits. When this offsets free cash, if I'm using the correct terminology, I'm not sure, does that not wipe out this deficit for future years?
No, it does not. It stays there because some of these grants are still active. So even though they have a deficit, receipts are still coming in. Expenses are still going out. So the only way we close these is if they're inactive for like 3 years. And then I know that I sent this information when we did the tax recap for fiscal year 2022. We actually had these are written off, $551,000 deficits to be raised on the fiscal year 22 tax recap. So these are like your safer 2017, 2016 grants, things that are are old. So that deficit would have to sit on there for 3 or 4 years before they would actually write them off on the tax recap. So they continue, and they go back, you know, if the deficits are gone the next year, it goes back into your free cash for the next year.
That's the part I'm having trouble connecting, and I think that might be the part that a lot of our constituents are having trouble connecting, because if I'm reading this calculation and this certification process, there would have been another $1,681,000 and some odd, available for free cash if it wasn't for deficits. So where does that money go?
So the 1,000,006 just continues on. It's a special revenue fund. It sits there. It moves to the next fiscal year for people to either reconcile receipts to come in, expenses, to be expended off to them. The only way they're going to close out is if we close them out. So they have to have a zero balance. They're closed out. They're reconciled. They're closed out. They're deactivated.
So if we have the money, why don't we just close
These are
them out?
all active.
I mean, if we have the money, why don't we just close them out?
Or why isn't the balance brought to zero once we pay it?
I don't understand what you mean if we have
Yeah.
the money. So we don't have the money.
I could
That's
ask
the
Councilor
issue.
Jordan
For some-
to-
Yeah.
For whatever reason.
Yeah, let me just
Excuse
help.
me?
Let me help Tanya on this one question.
Sure.
So we should have had, absent the 1.6 million, how much free cash would we have had? It would have been the amount, the 2.3 plus 1.6, correct?
Correct.
Okay. So once we pay, theoretically, we would have had 3.9. We took 1.6 and we're paying it to pay off these deficits. So the question is,
So you're not paying them off.
then
You're
what's,
paying them off. You're covering them.
well, we're bringing the balances to zero.
No, you're not. You're not bringing the balance to zero. They're not closed out. It stays there. It moves forward
No.
to the next
I
year.
I understand that the accounts stay open because there's new activity in them. I get that part. But according to DLS, they're telling us that you have these shortfalls in these accounts, correct? So when we take
Yes.
1.6 million of our reserves to pay off those deficits, now I did.
You don't pay them off.
No.
That's the wrong wordage. You do not pay them off. They sit there and they go on, they move forward to the next year. They're not paid off.
Okay,
That
so
makes sense.
if they're not paid off, then why isn't our free cash 3.9 then?
Because you're covering deficits, accumulated deficits. So these
That doesn't make
deficits
sense.
could be expenditures that were overexpended. They could be revenues that haven't come into the city yet. They could be debt that hasn't been banned or bond yet. So what it does is you're not paying it off. It's sitting there, moving forward to the next year to give you an opportunity for your active special revenue account. You're going to reconcile and you're going to make sure you're having cash receipts come in to cover those deficits. Or if it's a ban or a bond, we're going to make sure that we're working with our bond counsel to cover that debt deficit. So they don't close out until they say, either we say that balance is zero, that's deactivated, or they say on the tax recap, you have to write this off because it's been there for 4 years and we don't see you doing anything. So now you're going to have to raise and appropriate those deficits.
Then this still doesn't jive with me, because if we have $3.9 million in free cash and we have an account payable, effectively, a deficit account, right? Basic accounting here. So we should be debiting the free cash and we should be crediting these deficits. right? Like, if we're not crediting it, then why is there a
That's
debit?
not what we do.
Well,
That's not what they do.
But what you're saying is that we have 3.9 million in either two items, and I believe the number is actually 4.6, but you said that we had $3 million we got more revenue than we thought we were going to get, and we had 1.6 million in money that we had appropriated but never spent. So we actually had $4.6 million. That's the top of the sheet, right? So at the top of the line, we've got revenue came in stronger and we didn't spend all our money. So we've got this pot of 4.6 million. Now I have an account payable of $1.6 million because it's sitting on the balance sheet of the city effectively because you have these deficits that are unreconciled, right, that need to be accounted for. And so we're carrying it on the city's balance sheet, or we're paying it off with $1.6 million, or we're putting in an account to do it eventually. Basically, we're reserving the money for that purpose. I mean, that would be the corporate, it's a known liability. You recognize the liability, you put the money aside, and you either appropriate it or you reserve it. So now your 4.6 is debited 1.6, and this gets zeroed out. So you've got the remainder is the 3.3 or 3 million. That I don't understand how this doesn't add up to me. How could you have 4.6? We don't get credit for the 1.6, and we're only left with 2.3. That doesn't jive to me.
I can send you the information from the DLS on how they account for deficits if you like.
Okay.
Maybe you can read it and get a better understanding of it.
All right. We'll have to have some.
Tanya, I promised myself I was going to ask you 10,000 questions on the deficits themselves, so I'm going to ask you one.
I love it.
Second page, James K. Morrell Scholarship. Scholarship. I've asked you questions about scholarships in the past. $18,886. There's half a dozen 7 scholarships or 8 listed here of deficits. Not to mention, I'm not going to go on. See, I'm asking too many questions. Why is the city responsible for scholarships of money that has been given for good, very good reasons to help graduating students go to college from prior alumni? How can the city be responsible for that deficit? It's not tax dollars.
Because they've overspent.
I know they overspent it, but who overspent it, there should be. Shut up.
And when the city accepts these grants, when they accept these scholarship funds, when they accept that, they're saying they're going to manage these properly. So if nobody is reconciling and they just keep on giving out scholarships, then the deficit is going to be created. So I know that the school is aware of these deficits and I know that they're working on them, but I have to count on the school to reconcile to tell me what's wrong. I don't know, maybe you sent a scholarship from the wrong account? I'm not sure of that because I don't hand their scholarships out. But I can tell you since I've been here, when they go to give out scholarships, I check every single account and I make sure there's enough funding in there to cover it.
Does anybody check to make sure that these were inadvertent over expenditures and not something else? Maybe we could have Chief Pratt investigate it?
Maybe. I think really the school department is dealing with tons of reconciliation issues from previous years.
I realize they're previous years, nothing to do with Anthony Soda, nothing to do with his financial staff, which
but they're
is
fixing it.
a great team of qualified people. I understand all that, but year after year after year, we see this. You got me going, Tanya. I got $1 in my
I
pocket.
didn't see you.
If I give you $1, can we take the feasibility study for Lawrence Peck, which has a $1 deficit? Can we close that out if I give you $1?
Yes. You'll have to accept the revenue first, though.
Mayor, I'm going to give it to the mayor tonight when we want that closed out.
All really good questions.
Any further discussion? Mayor, would you like to weigh in?
Just to add that a lot of those deficits you're speaking of, there are a lot of old ones, and it's a combination of factors that's involved here. There's been some deficits that apparently it was paid in the past, and maybe it was misposted somewhere, and I think there's going to have to be a deep dive in reconciliating penny for penny where things are, where things might be misposted. I think other things too is because reconciliation is still behind, it's difficult to know what accounts are really in the negatives and which are balanced as we try to do our year-end procedures to balance those deficits and transition into the new fiscal year. These are all the structural issues that are happening internally that I know Tanya has definitely been working aggressively, as well as other departments, specifically the school department. We've been meeting regularly since we came in, the different functions of our local government here, the financial departments, to understand this further, but more specifically to identify what the investment is so that we can continue to try to play catch up here, as well as, understanding what changes in policies, procedures, how can we do it differently so that we're not going backwards. There are some things we'll be focusing on, especially when I submit the budget or even when I submit free cash transfer requests, so that we can focus on these necessary investments so that we can strengthen internal controls. So that'll be coming. But on the plus side, you're not in the negative this year. Congratulations. You were consistently around negative 300, negative 400,000. This has nothing to do with me. I've only been here for 5 months. This has a lot to do with the counselors that are here currently and that were here before, with Tanya, with the auditor, in really taking a conservative and very aggressive approach to trying to climb the city of Holyoke out of this practice, this hole here. So congratulations. But going into when we do the budget presentation and free cash investments, it's gonna the focus is gonna be contributing to that very framework that you've achieved to date. It's about strengthening internal controls and growing, so that we're improving, so that we're keeping up with our quality of life issues and whatnot. So with that in mind, moving forward, that's going to be the focus, so that you're strengthening your foundation, your fiscal position here, and we'll continue to try to, accomplish, one task at a time here, so that we can take full advantage of a $3 million free cash certification, $4 million free cash certification in the near future, and plug some of these service gaps that we're currently experiencing because of these internal control issues that you've been dealing with. So things to be frustrated about, but also things to celebrate as well. And let's focus on those celebrations and those wins and continue to build from there.
Mayor, well said. And we know last year, and we know this year that you are looking to go in that right direction. And we appreciate our auditor's efforts in this area. We appreciate I think the school department has done a tremendous job under Anthony Soto's leadership before becoming superintendent receiver, when he was in the position of, I don't know the title, if it was business manager, but the finance guy at the schools. And certainly, we appreciate our department heads and the chief who designates Lieutenant John Hart, who has his hand up, because I know John has tried to reconcile a lot of the grants in the police department and work with the auditor. And I think most of our department heads have responded, just looking at the years on some of these deficits going back, some 4, 5, 6 fiscal years. I will note that the last negative free cash years would not have been negative if all these accounts were reconciled correctly the years that they were spent. So we actually, we're getting better, because the number's increasing, obviously. But the negative sends a bad message when we really think about the efforts of our mayors, the efforts of the city council to keep the budget under control. We've actually had some, in the black years, look like they're negative because of deficits from years past. John, did you still want to say something, or do we cover all the bases? Lieutenant John Hart.
Maybe just a little bit, I don't want to muddy the waters too much. Just like Tanya had said, like that 1.6 million deficit, so you have to kind of think that that's at June 30th, right, of last year. So now we have from June 30th to September 30th to try and make up the difference for that number. And then it closes out. Well, we don't have money in the city budget to pay for that from July 1st to September, or from September until we're just getting the free cash now. So if we were to pay that amount now, that deficit, like Tanya said, almost more than half of that 1.6 is already paid for, because they're grants that continue each year. So that 900-something thousand that's already been paid towards that deficit is already in the city's coffers for next free cash. So we're up that amount. So that's kind of how it goes. You can't, if you don't have the money to reconcile those grants from June to September, to the end of September, then there's really no way to close them out. Plus, like Tanya said, they're continuing each year. So until that grant actually closes, after that next fiscal year, and when free cash is certified the following year, then that's when you could pay it off. But hope that it didn't mess it up more.
Not at all, but thank you. Chair will recognize that joining us on Zoom is City Councilor Tessa Murphy Ramboletti. Tanya, what vote do you need us to take at the City Council tomorrow night?
Actually, I don't believe that you have to accept the free cash certification, but if you wanted to expend the free cash, you would vote a transfer appropriation into the general fund budget.
Okay. On the safe side, we've taken some type of vote in the past, where we've accepted the state's certification of the free cash number, obviously with some question marks, but we can only accept what they certify, which I think we all know that. So if the committee has any, Councilor Jordan?
Yeah, I think one of the votes that we'll have to have, I'm assuming, now that this 2.382 has been recognized as 1.591,290 has to be moved as a motion to send into the marijuana stabilization.
I have to submit a transfer request. I haven't gotten there yet. Yeah.
Okay.
And
so that certainly will be a vote.
Yeah.
Yeah, that will have to come from the mayor to us.
There's also going to be a request to start a new stabilization account, capital, and then there'll be a vote for a dollar amount transferred to there. So there'll be a couple coming in the very near future.
Yeah, and again, Mayor, thank you so much. I really warmly received your April 15th letter. I thought you did a really nice job outlining the issues, and I, for one, appreciate the particularly the comment in the fourth paragraph talking about making one-time investments using some of the free cash to the stabilization. I think that's the right approach. It should be noted that we have not made a principal payment into the stabilization account since 1999.
Oh, that's going to change.
Exactly.
You know,
So-
but happy to know too, also, Counselor. So that 590,000 retained earnings for SOAR, we're actually actively looking into how, to the points you were making earlier about looking into the Suez contract, and getting some sort of honest review of it.
Yeah.
And not only that, taking it a step further and investigating options of what we should be doing. So
Yeah.
it's a nice, healthy amount, flexibility to hire the consultants we need to look into those things and offer some guidance.
Yeah, thank you so much for saying that, because I think that's exactly the right approach. We should be using some of these resources to give us option A, we stay with Suez.
Yep.
Option B, we go back to public option. Option C is we maybe get a different company. I mean, or maybe there's another option D. You know, whatever those are, as we all know, that contract is coming up very soon, and we need to do that legwork. So really appreciate that, Mayor. You certainly, whatever I can do to support you in doing that, and I'm sure the others feel the same way. We want to do that. So I did want to just make sure what I'm reading I'm understanding. So back to these amounts. Like, for example, I know the police are here. I'm going to grab a couple of theirs because John's with us. So when we see something like the 2017 SAFER grant, and this is saying it has a deficit of $267,000 from 2017, what does that mean?
I think that's fire. That's fire.
Oh, is that the fire department? Okay, then let me put that aside. Okay, let me put that one aside then, because they're not here. Let me take off-duty police detail account, 35,224. So when that one is short, what does that mean? Does that mean that we paid the money out and we didn't get the money from the vendors, right? I think I know what that means, because we've had to reconcile that over the years. But is this saying that this is just a snapshot in time when they did this reconciliation, but this could grow? Or what exactly, and again, I want to also second the comment about Tanya and how hardworking her office is, and she personally has been very impressed with her. I just wanted to understand a couple of these lines so that I'm connecting with you exactly what I'm saying here. So I don't know if John wants to touch on that or Tanya, but 35,224, so we're short on that to this police off-duty account. So what does that mean?
So that's like a, it's like a revolving account. So that's what it was at the time, again, in July 1st, when they closed the fiscal year. So in the meantime, we've been doing reimbursement, so I'm sure that amount has been caught up, but I think, I'm not sure, but with Tanya could probably know that better. This has been an ongoing thing from previous administrations. We made efforts to correct it and repay that down, and I'm sure we paid a large amount, because it's now only 35, but it used to be in the 200,000 range, by adding a fee onto our off-duty jobs. So we couldn't find a financial way to actually have those funds go towards that off-duty account, just because one was a revenue, one was another account. But we worked with Tanya, but that fee that was collected went to the general fund. So, and it was in the amount over what was owed. And we continue with that fee. However, but that's a number that's revolving. By the time we get cash receipts in from those jobs done, and the time they get put on the books, there's kind of a lag in that. So that number is really small, but it's active, just like other grants. So I'm not, that number's probably already been reconciled since July, and Tanya could probably talk more about those funds with that.
Okay, so I think I'm starting to catch what's going on in some of these then. It's a snapshot in time that could be short, but one of the things I want, and maybe Tanya, you're the best person to answer this question, because I just want to make sure, and this is going to come across a lot worse than I intend this word to mean, but I want to make sure there's not an opportunity for some sort of Ponzi scheme with some of these accounts, because you actually have these fat deficits and you're paying them off with current money from other accounts to pay back old deficits from other accounts. So you're using current money to pay off somebody else's old bill. So it looks like you're reconciling, but really you're not, because those old liabilities are never officially addressed. You're using today's money from somebody else to pay off a bill for somebody else in the past. So Tanya, do you feel like when you see numbers like, you know, the fire department safer, 267, or some of these other big ticket items, you know, safe and successful youth initiative from 2016. By the way, it has a date, so since 2016 is a date in the past, we obviously can't have that keep going, right? Because today's 2022. But you make sure, Tanya, there's no Ponzi thing going on here, right?
I have no idea of what you're talking about. No, I'm kidding.
Okay.
So I can tell you, with these funds, these old funds that you see like that, things that happen are like, say the fire department, that 2017 you're talking about. When a person gets paid out of these grants, we switch their pay code. If nobody tells us to move it back into the general fund, it continues to get charged off to the grant. So that's what happened in this 2017. Sometimes they'll have 3 or 4 years of the same grant. So you'll have 2017, 2018, 2019. In error, they charge off to 2017 what they should be charging off to a 2018 or a 2019 grant. Unless people are reconciling and noticing that payroll is coming out of that grant, they're not going to find it. A deficit exists. We close out the year. We can't do a journal entry to put that payroll back in the general fund once the year is closed. So that's the importance of reconciling. And people have to pay attention. If you have many years of the same grant, you have to make sure the expenses are getting charged off to the right place. They might say charge this off to the SAFER grant. They're SAFER 2017, 2018, 2019. They're charging it off to SAFER 2017. Should be charged off to SAFER 2019. You're not reconciling. That's a $100,000 bill that could be in the wrong special revenue fund. So that's why I don't think it's a Ponzi scheme. I think it's carelessness. What I think it is.
All right. So, yeah. Okay. So what I'm concerned about is if we're taking current grant money and paying off, like, I just want to make sure each of these accounts are being properly reconciled and they're not using new monies to just cover the deficits of the past. That kind of would concern me, that someone's looking to make sure we actually got the money that we said we were getting under these grants. Do we actually go in and see to make sure that I said I would get $200,000 for 2017 X grant, that actually the 200,000 was actually received? Does that level of detail happen?
So I'm going to say that's up to the department heads. The department heads, they're filing their reimbursement. So if they file for a reimbursement, they should be checking to make sure that reimbursement comes into that grant. And if it doesn't, they should be following up with the treasurer's office or my office. I know that John Hart just found one today. He was like, hey, I had, one of these deficits, I have a cash receipt, and I'm looking in my records, and I never received it. So I'm going to say people are doing it. Today they are reconciling. We never take money from one grant and pay off a deficit from another grant. That's why the deficits are staying there. So what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to do an appropriation to pay off deficits. But also we have surpluses.
That's
So
key
the
point.
surpluses, where maybe the revenue was posted to the wrong account, it could be a number of things. Maybe an expense that should have been charged off to a 2019 grant was charged off to a 2017 grant. So we also have surpluses that are hitting our free cash, that are not hitting our free cash, because we only see the deficit. So what my office is doing right now is we're looking at those old funds. We're looking at the surpluses. We need to close the surpluses out, accept that revenue into the general fund, and then make appropriations into these deficits so we can pay off, because chances are something got mixed up. But we have to follow the accounting specifications when we do that. We have to bring it in, and we have to appropriate it out via city council. And then we can cover some of those. It's just a lot of work, really.
Right. But that's exactly what I think you're hearing from us, that we want to do that exercise. I think that's exactly the answer.
Absolutely.
Yeah, okay.
We have
Great.
387 active grants right now.
Right.
387, that's a lot.
That is a lot. And we would welcome any recommendation from your office to, if there's some of this stuff that we can reduce this and simplify this in any way, certainly open. If you could make that 387 190, that would be warmly welcomed. The other thing is, and again, I don't want to be Debbie Downer here, but I will only say that of the 2.382, and that's great that we've got that, we also have to appreciate, though, does this include the 1.7 million in ARPA money that was put towards the budget? Right, is that making us look better for this year in quote unquote lost revenue?
So this was actually from 2021.
Okay.
The ARPA money was not included in 2021. It was included in 2022.
Okay, so that's good to know. Okay. And the cannabis money of 1.6 million, that started to come in 21, correct? That's why we're going to do that transfer. So basically we had about 800 grand of real free cash, and we had this 1.6 million of the marijuana funds, if I'm correct.
That's correct.
Okay, great. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Any further discussion? Mayor?
So I was just going to add, one. Sorry, Councilor Anderson Burgos.
Councilor Anderson Burgos?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I believe I brought this up in the past. It seems that every time when it comes to budget and we're balancing things, these grants are throwing everything out of whack. And as Tanya mentioned earlier, there are over 300 and something grants. I've mentioned this before, where I feel that we need a grant, if you will, grant specialist who oversees, it doesn't matter what department, who's getting the grant, that you track these grants, because this is gonna keep happening. It's gonna keep exhausting us. We're gonna try and figure out, where's this money going? It seems like we need that specialist, because if not, this is just gonna keep happening. It's gonna keep happening, and I've only been on city council for 4 years, and it just keeps happening and we spend so much time discussing this, trying to figure out where the money went, which grant is it. And here's another thing that I caught on to. A while ago, there was someone in a department, I'm not gonna mention specific names or anything, let's just say Department A there was someone in that department who overseed the grants for that department. Well, that person left that managed the grants, didn't oversee it, and it caused a hiccup. That's all the information I'm going to provide to you, but that right there, I'm assuming that it's happening citywide, and it's creating this imbalance in our budget and everything we're trying to balance. It's just creating more chaos. Now, I know grants are good. We all know that. But if they're not managed properly, we're going to sit here all night and discuss and try to figure out, hey, what's going on here? You know, that's just me. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor, and well said. And of course, I will note the irony of this is we never had this deficit problem until you were elected. Just kidding, Juan.
I got you.
Mayor Garcia.
So not necessarily a grant liaison manager. What we need is a comptroller. These issues with these grants, these are internal control issues. There are folks that have went and secured reimbursements. We're not reconciliating. They're not being properly posted. That we're not caught up with. It's all the internal structure that we have that's not adequately keeping up with managing these issues that are in front of us. So I just wanted to make that clear. There is a need for some sort of oversight, CFO, comptroller who can appropriately hold departments accountable toward making sure that and not just those departments that are managing grants, because we're going and we're getting the reimbursements. It's when those reimbursements make its way to the treasurer's office, and then from there these things are being posted sooner rather than later. We're a few months behind in how these things are posted. So there will be a transfer request using free cash, a healthy amount of funds to deploy specifically to help infuse as much resources as possible to catch up with these penny for penny reconciliation, because it's really screwing things up. It's a lot more complicated than what I'm hearing, although what you're talking about is a piece of it, but there's so much more involved, and it has a lot to do with our current internal control system. It has nothing to do with, you might get a department and then collect the reimbursement on time before transitioning to fiscal year, and it'll be a couple pennies. So I think, if I'm not mistaken, when I spoke with the chief about that 2017 SAFER, he tells me that we already collected that. So I asked him to get a receipt from whoever it is from the federal government to prove that it was paid, so we can now have that on file, so when the counselors ask, we can say it did get. It's just a matter of finding it and making sure it's appropriately posted accordingly. So that's where the problem is. And when we do present this budget, you're going to have a presentation of the day-to-day stuff, but I'm hoping that we can carve a piece of that free cash and invest handsomely in the structural stuff, including, your concerns you brought up with the assessor there. So we're talking about support for the auditor, support for the treasurer's office, the assessors, to be sure that not only are we catching up, but we're also building capacity and strengthening systems, internal controls, policies, and procedures to make sure we don't go backwards and it doesn't happen again. So it's not, I know it's grant specific because you see the deficits with grants, but it's not, it's a little bit more internal than just black and white that, we deficit spend, you collect. There's more going on here than we can understand. It's a little bit more complex. But we do have to invest in that area in order for us to get to where we need to be and deploy the necessary investments in area where they need to, so we can stop paying for these mistakes over and over again. So just wanted to make that point.
Thank you, Mayor. Well said. We got a couple important topics coming up, and I'm going to recognize Councilor Rivera.
I just wanted to ask a couple questions about the grants. Just to clarify, I don't believe we get the funding up front, right? I think we have to bill or create receipts and then we get paid at the end. if I'm correct. If someone,
Some grants are reimbursable. A lot of grants are reimbursable.
most of them are,
Yeah.
right? Okay. And then I guess the other piece for me was within the grants, I think there is a function that includes to pay the grant manager within each department usually. So if we did decide to do something like that, that could be a resource to look into, right? If every single one of these grants has the opportunity to have a piece of it carved out for a grants manager, because most grants do that, so that way you don't have to pay for it yourself, then maybe we could look into using those resources to then hire someone to actually manage all the grants overall. I mean, it's going to be different pieces, but
I think that's a fantastic idea, Mayor, because this comptroller that the mayor was talking about, Councilor Rivera, in the old days was called, it had a title for the comptroller, it was called mayor.
Right.
And I'm not, no. I'm going to stop short. It's gotten a lot more sophisticated, the needs and the demands and the expertise. I get it, and we do need to do something, and DLS wants us to do something. But paying for it has always been the question, because I don't see the city of Holyoke making our mayor's ceremonial, reducing the salary and letting the comptroller, get paid the big bucks, and the city council oversee the comptroller. I'm just having fun. But Councilor Rivera, I think that's a good point. I would like to wrap this up, though, because we have three important topics coming up, and this has been a great discussion, but in fairness to what we have to get to. The chair would entertain that on item 5 and 6, item 5, that we would just adopt the certification of free cash by the state.
Yep.
The mayor will have to make the mayor's prerogative to make any future proposals for transfer.
So moved.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? And item D, why don't we just receive and keep in the archives?
Item 6, yeah.
Item 6.
Yep.
Receive.
Motion made, second, receive and keep in the archives. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Item number
Motion to
7.
take item number 7 off the table?
Motion made, second, to take item 7 off the table. All those in favor? Any
Aye.
opposed?
Aye.
So moved. From Veterans Benefits, $25,000 to Repair Maintenance Fields, $25,000. We have with us, and Jesus, I apologize, I tried to get a hold of you today. You've been before us and you've explained the reason there's a surplus in veteran benefits. Would you like to just go on record and tell us that tonight? Jesus Pereira is from our Veterans Department. Welcome. You got a little echo.
Last year when we projected our veteran services account, we did. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, now we can.
We can now, yes.
Is that any better?
Yes.
Good.
All right, sorry about that. Last year when we projected out our veterans benefits account, we based it off of our running standing of what we were paying out. This last year, through receiving federal benefits for some of our recipients, along with some folks moving out or using other resources for income, we've been able to reduce our monthly outlay, which created an excess or a surplus in our veterans benefits account. With that being said, we shared with other department heads, along with our auditor and the mayor, that we had an excess in this account and offered it up to other departments who may need it for something that they have unfunded. So that's where we stand.
Jesus, thank you, and thank you for staying on tonight. I wanted to give you a heads up that we appreciate everything you do, and I think we could have got that information up front, but thank you for staying. This is going into repair, maintenance, and fields. It sounds like parks, because it is parks, but it's actually part of the DPW budget. And I'm looking through Zoom. Mayor Garcia is going to take this one.
So I had asked, what's his name, Two-Wig, what does he need to keep up with the maintenance of our parks or to improve thereof? And he had mentioned that he can use a newer or better field conditioner. So I asked him to get some price quotes. He came back with a quote. I fished around, and Jesus was kind enough to step up and help out. So that's where that came from. It's to purchase a field conditioner so that the Parks Division can go and appropriately maintain the parks accordingly.
All right, I'm a landscaper, but can you just define field conditioner a little bit more?
Oh, yeah, that's a good.
Never
That's
mind.
out of it.
Well,
maybe Izzy.
We'll take Mr. Two-Wig's word for it. Any discussion?
Make a motion to be approved.
Motion made and seconded to approve and adopt. If there's no further discussion, seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So moved. The reason I kept this on for last two is this type of transfer, I wanted to make sure we understood free cash before we looked at personnel dollars going into the expense size of a budget, especially when it's from one department to another. It's nothing wrong with it, but it is unusual.
That was before it was free cash was certified, so that was already in the.
Oh, it was even, okay, that's even understood. Item number 8.
Number 8 off the table for discussion.
So moved. All those in favor? Any opposed? Under similar lines, this is a request from the police department, from patrol officers, $215,000, sergeants, $25,000, matrons, $15,000, total $255,000. To repair maintenance building, $245,000, in personnel equipment, $10,000. We have Chief and Pratt with us, and Lieutenant Hart with us, and of course Mayor Garcia. Chief, Lieutenant Hart, do you want to walk us through this one?
Sure. I didn't know if the mayor wanted to speak first or he wanted me to go.
Yeah, it's just it's this. The result of this came from an earlier discussion in March. The chief presented to me an inspection report that he can go more into detail about in regards to compliance with safety in this the station or the cell specifically. Was it?
Correct. The cells in the station failed an inspection, focused mainly around the lack of cameras and our keypad system where we check the prisoners. The officers have a keypad that it's also the same keypad that gets us in and out of the building. That has failed on occasion, and our most recent analysis of that is that it's just going to continue to fail until it just one day they can't bring it back. So those issues are obviously of concern, and they're a liability issue for us, for the city. I brought that to the mayor. The mayor asked me to look, obviously in my expense side, I didn't have these kind of numbers. There was one other item while we were looking at this is our evidence room.
Before you get into that, Chief.
Okay, go.
So I was just going to describe here that, so we got the report, we started talking about cameras, it kind of led to another, not just cameras there at the police station. I was shocked to know that the cameras at the police station weren't functioning. Started talking about if we're going to look into investment in cameras, whether or not we can do a camera system at City Hall. And then that kind of evolved from there, and I had asked the chief, is there anything else in the police department that is a high dollar amount that we need that's our responsibility to invest and catch up in? And he had brought to my attention the need for was it a lift, an electronic lift in the records room that hasn't been functioning for some time.
Evidence room. The evidence room is big, high places like this with stuff up high. The officers in there, when they have to retrieve the evidence, have to go up and get it and bring it back down. Some of these items can be a little heavier or whatever. The lift we had in there is not functioning, so they use literally an older ladder. We've already had one incident where the officer got hurt trying to do that. So another, what I consider to be something we need to address. That wasn't as big a ticket item, but to me, liability-wise, it's a problem. So I wanted to address it.
So I had asked the chief if he can just put these lists of needs together and a plan for me so that I can come in front of you and see how we can navigate this and invest in those items.
So the cost of the lift would be?
You want to break it down like these, you got City Hall cameras, HPD cameras, the lift, like sure. Is there a breakdown of the 200 and something thousand?
I have a breakdown, sure.
Okay.
The HPD cameras is $162,213.98.
162 and how much?
$162,213.98. Okay. For the City Hall cameras, which could also be monitored at the police station, is $13,449.18. The keypad system is twofold. It's $42,457 $2,000.18 for the keypad system. And then there's the key card maker, like to make the key cards. That's $4,281.96. And that evidence lift is $7,390. That comes up to a grand total of $229,792.30. And as you can see, the transfers for $255 into the specific accounts, taking into account, some of these projects when we set out, there could be issues. So we want to make sure there's money in there. If it doesn't happen, then that money would go back anyway. But I want to make sure that if there's some unintended, especially with cameras, it could be a wiring issue, especially in a place like City Hall that's older. We just want to be prepared for that. So we did, factor in that extra money. That's it. That wraps it up. I do have quotes and whatever you need.
I have some questions if you're ready, Mr. Chairman.
Councilor Jordan.
Thank you. Chief, or maybe Mayor, whoever, how long has the external cameras to the police station not been working?
I don't know exactly, but I know that in my recent memory, I can remember Chief Neiswanger trying to address them. So that's back probably 10 years.
So we haven't had cameras working outside the police station for 10 years?
I can't say specifically.
But
I just
ballpark.
remember,
Ballpark.
I'll say at least 5.
Okay. So let's just say it's 5 years. So with all the really super smart people we have down there, like why would they allow something like that happen? For example, I'll point out to you that it was brought to my attention from a constituent that the building was tagged last year, that maybe 5, 6, 7, something in that range. I didn't count them all up. A number of police cars were tagged. I wanted to ask, is the place that we're storing our cars, is that going to be covered by cameras too? Because that's embarrassing. I mean, that's a total screw you to the Holyoke Police Department, and then we're sitting here with no evidence. We're out. That's your whole job, right? Catch the bad guys all day long, and someone can literally come up, tag your building, tag all your police cars, tag your private vehicles, tag all these vehicles, and you have no idea, or I don't know if they ended up catching all the bad guys, but it seems to me like that should have all been on camera. Because the question I got asked was, yeah, because I said, well, that's stupid. Someone's going to easily get caught, right? Because it's all on camera.
All I can say is that, we put in for those cameras every year in the budget. And
it didn't happen.
So, I'm not saying we didn't know it. We didn't try to address it. But as usual, it's funding. So,
did we catch the bad guys in that situation? Are you familiar with that?
I don't recall. I do think we did.
Catch up with them?
I think we did catch up with those taggers.
I'm glad. Whoever those people are, I have no idea.
And you're 100% right about the cameras. And I know I came here specifically for a council meeting very early on in my tenure about the cameras here in this building.
Right.
And I saw this as an opportunity to take care of that as well and
Good.
give us that ability to monitor those cameras as part of this, which is part of it, so that I know there's a concern on a lot of the councilors about the safety here.
Right.
Or there was a concern, and I feel that this could address it as well at the same time. So.
Thank you. You guys have such an amazingly difficult job and you're under such a level of scrutiny, I think no more than ever today. For us not to have these cameras here to protect you in these he said, she said, or he said situations, that could be the difference between us facing some massive lawsuit versus who knows what, where somebody claims, you guys beat somebody up, or you did something, or Lord knows what, or we didn't treat somebody right in our facilities. That this is stuff that's absolutely bare bones minimum. You have to have this under the level of scrutiny, rightly so, that the police department, it's always that double-edged sword of we love our police, but you have amazing power and we want to make sure you're treating everybody the right way. But This I see as protecting you in doing your job, because no one can then make these accusations, and there's no camera to back you up, you know?
I agree 100%, especially with the internal cameras, booking cameras, the cell cameras. You know, when we take people into the cells, you know, they're in our custody, and I see it as a huge liability for the city.
Absolutely.
For the police department and the city. So I just felt that these were, you know, things that could be addressed more immediately this way.
Sure.
The mayor asked me, this is what I see, and then, you know, bring it to you and see what you believe, and we'll go from there.
I think you'll be warmly received here momentarily. But as far as City Hall goes, what's the plan for City Hall cameras on that? Like what's
so we put in the plan for cameras for all the
doors.
All the doors.
Okay.
The cameras for the doors, and that's what was discussed. I mean, I know there's cameras here when the meeting's going on, so
right.
You know, we can always look at, provided we don't run into anything crazy in the setup of this. You know, there is money there. I mean, if there's one more camera needed, I think we could bring that back to you very quickly and get that done as well. If somebody, we just did it quickly, the doors. I mean, that's what seemed to be the concern. So, at least if something did happen here, as you pointed out,
right,
we have the cameras to go back to see who came or went from the building.
There you go.
That's very basic stuff.
Yeah, great. Thank you, Chief.
I think we have the necessary precautions in this room for when we are here. And not too long ago, you know, we assessed what was going on and added some things to cameras, of course, are there, but added some things that help us out. Because I found out accidentally one night. We'll talk about it later.
Worked out good, though.
It worked out real quick. Chief, I know we know the answers, but so everybody listening hears it. The surplus in these line items, just real quick.
The surpluses are from the patrolman and the sergeant, are from grants and shortages at different times. As you know,
Shortages, vacant bodies.
Correct.
Right, yeah.
And then the matrons, we had an excess there this year, basically because we weren't using the matrons for quite some time. But even with the money that I'm pulling from there now, we'll have plenty of money left now that we are using the matrons again to get through the rest of the year.
That was COVID related?
Yes, because during COVID we weren't using the matrons basically because we were sending the prisoners to the jail.
Okay. Any further discussion? No. Councilor Rivera.
I just have questions on maintenance on the cameras, because we can install the cameras, but they won't work again. And then we'll be here at the table, right? And then having the same conversation all over again. So for me, what's the plan to keep up the maintenance on the cameras and keep updating them so that we don't get to a point till today, 10 years later or 5 or whatever it is, that the cameras are not working. That is an issue, being in a cell, and then there is no protection with regards to the cameras, as well as making sure people are actually manning the cameras too at the same time, if that's the case, right? Or however the process is. But for me, it's just a plan ahead of how we're gonna try to maintain the cameras. If not maintain, keep up with them and updating them. Because if not, then in a couple of years, we'll just be reinvesting in a whole nother set of cameras all over again.
Yeah, I believe that, I don't know exact, I would have to get back to you on that, but I believe that this is written into the quote as far as warranty, correct? And, you know, I would say that, you know, in 1997, the cameras they put in there were state of the art, right? But they were, you know, everything in time changes. I would just say that this will certainly address our most recent needs, and I feel pretty confident we'd be good with that.
If I could add
Sure,
something
I'm
to
sure
that.
Sergeant Hart knows.
Lieutenant Hart.
Yeah, if I could add something to that, I think that goes in line with what the mayor's trying to do as far as reestablish a capital budget. So, like these cameras, we have put in our capital budget each and every year. So now with this new funding, there's a possibility to relook at that and have a sustainable system in place to upgrade these cameras as we move forward in the new capital budget.
So it sounds like you'll be developing some sort of, not a strategic plan around cameras, but something similar around making sure that you're either updating them, because I understand 1997 was a long time ago. I had a blue Mac in my computer at Magnet Middle School. They were like big, clear in the back. But over time, like in the schools, they kept updating them as best as they could, right? So to me, it's like creating a plan around that, right? We know things are going to go out of date, they're going to get old, and they're not going to work anymore. But creating a plan around that kind of makes sense, so that way we're working effectively and efficiently and not having to spend
100%.
unnecessary dollars.
I would definitely say yes, 100%.
All right.
I think what happened in this case is, we ran these cameras till they died, and we didn't have a good strategic plan to transition to the next phase of cameras. I think with Marcus Communication, we'll stay on that and keep them upgraded, so we won't have this problem again. That won't mean there won't be some costs, but obviously not this type of major upgrade.
Okay, and then one last thing, side note, might not even be about this topic, but the cameras all throughout the city that don't work, or if they do work, like, is there a way? I mean, this is a different topic. Forget it. I'll talk about it different day.
That's a whole nother area, but
Yeah, that's another item that we have on our capital
yeah,
budget
it's on
that we submitted
but,
this year.
That's a huge project. And each of those cameras is a whole nother. I think not having a city camera on a certain street doesn't carry the same liability concerns as not having them in the building. So I wanted to focus more on this immediate need. I will say that this inspection that happened, right around St. Patrick's Day, by the way. Anyway, it does call for me to respond and give them a plan. And so knowing what I was planning, my hope is to come through this and then be able to respond back with a report to them saying our plan is to do A, B, or C, whatever that turns out to be.
I wanted to ask.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman.
Councilor Vera, you good? Good. Thank you. Councilor Jordan.
Yeah, one quick. Do we have any plans for the parking garages, especially the ones that the police use to park in, our city vehicles? Because I want to make sure those have protection too. Do
We have cameras there.
You do?
Yes.
Okay, so that's all set. Very good. Thank you.
Any further discussion? Councilor Dahman.
Yeah, I just want to make a point that it's very important that we pass this tonight. I mean, to get, like you said, you have a plan and, come in, and I think in every business or every community, we have people come in and check at things being done right. And, like the safety check, and having something like that so vital of, the cells and the cameras outside the police department, I think is something that, definitely is got to take care of right away. And really appreciate you putting this plan together, especially for City Hall, for people coming in and out of here. We don't know who's coming in here late at night sometimes in a meeting or whatever, and if something's missing from here. So it's important that we have that, and as Councilor Vera said, that we do have the the update on these cameras and the maintenance of them, because that's important coming down the road. So I appreciate your work on this issue.
And Chief, if all possible, always, I hope that the requests for proposals or bids are with, whenever possible, local vendors.
They're definitely on the state list, 100%.
Okay. They have to be on the state list?
Well, if they're not, you got to go out to bid for some of these larger ones.
Oh,
right.
Sorry. I misunderstood what you meant. Yeah, I got it.
Make a motion to be approved, Mr. Chairman.
Motion made, second, that we adopt the transfer. We appreciate everybody's patience. If there's no further discussion, I see none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you, Chief. Thank you, Lieutenant Hart. The chair's going to entertain, we got 2 themes left. It looks like we have more items than that we would quickly take up, not quickly, but take up items 13, 14, 15, 13, 14, I'm sorry, take up 9, 10, 11, and 12 for a discussion. There'll be separate votes, but for a discussion together.
Okay.
All those
Suspend
in
the rules?
favor?
Okay.
Any
Yeah.
opposed?
Aye.
We have Aaron Vega with us, and items, I'll read them quickly into the record, and I think everybody will see the theme. These have been in committee for a little bit. We've had one discussion on 3 of these already, and this is our follow-up. The first one is a transfer request, stabilization cannabis impact money, $12,690. That will go into a cannabis liaison position. The second one is, item 10, is to explore the creation of that cannabis liaison position, followed by item 11, which is $150,000 of cannabis income money being earmarked for scholarships. And item 12 is by Councilor PUELLO, that the Office of Planning and Economic Development be invited to discuss the reasons behind the absence of medical marijuana providers in the city. That was the original reason for cannabis legalization. The goal of this discussion is to come up with a viable pathway to provide this service for residents, that they may enjoy their tax benefits and have their medical needs fulfilled. If the plan is already underway, discussion will inform residents of upcoming benefits. Aaron, welcome. And each of these orders are important.
Yep.
As I stated, 3 of them, we've already had a preliminary discussion, and we're looking forward to hearing from you on an update on where you might like the city go.
Sure. It's going up. It's going up. Things are happening. So good evening, and lots of good discussion tonight. I'll take the easy ones first. So regarding medical cannabis in the city of Holyoke, I've shared some information with councilors and happy to share it additionally. The CCC guidance and regulations. We're lucky in Holyoke to have Helen Gomez, who's with the High End. They have a property here in Holyoke. She's actually one of the citizen advisory members to the Cannabis Control Commission. Tessa Murphy-Romboletti was in that position previous, and now Helen is. So it's really great to have that connection to what's going on at the state level. So basically, in a nutshell, medical cannabis, which was the second vote taken by the people. Of course, as you know, the first one was to decriminalize, then medical, and then a separate vote, of course, for adult use. Medical cannabis, when it was established under DPH, before the CCC existed, is a vertically integrated license, which means when you apply to have a business dealing with medical cannabis, you have to grow, process, and sell it all under the same license. That was one of the big things that we fought against at the state level when adult use cannabis came on, was to make sure that that was not the case. So if you just want to open a dispensary, you can. If you just want to process, you can. If you just want to do grow, you could, and set the infrastructure up for that. So at this point, medical cannabis is still vertically integrated. As you know, GTI was the first ones in Holyoke. They do have a medical license, but their dispensary is not in Holyoke. And so we are set to hopefully have Solurge open this summer, and they will have medical cannabis available for card holders. They will have I'm probably not using the right word, but I think it's called a flexible counter, similar to Netta in Northampton, right? So if you're a medical card user, you go to the left, adult users go to the right. One thing that was discussed, I think that in our emails back and forth, Counselor, and then of course, I think I sent this email from Helen today, but again, I can send it. They have made the Citizens Advisory Group for CCC has made the recommendation that the vertical integration of the medical license be de-verticalized, and so that it could be separated out. And I think if that happens, you would see a lot of dispensaries apply for a flexible counter and be able to sell medical cannabis as well. And so that's sort of it in a nutshell. And I guess, in speaking, the CAB's recommendation, they are having a meeting on June 7th. And so if this is, and their recommendation in the documentation I sent over, eliminating the vertically integration requirement for the MTC licenses is laid out clearly. And again, this is Helen speaking, that she thinks it directly speaks to Holyoke objectives to find a viable pathway by providing the services for residents so they may enjoy their tax benefits and have the medical needs fulfilled. So Helen does her work, so she's referenced your order as well. So that's where we're at. So I guess the one ask or the one thing that we could consider, and I can follow up, is that if the council so chooses to support this idea, we could work with Helen and draft a letter of support for the eliminating the vertical integration for medical cannabis. And the report I sent, and again, I think that I sent it to Jeffrey and to Will directly, but I can make sure everyone gets it. On pages 4 through, I think, 4, 5, 6 is the piece about how it talks about the MTC application. So,
Thank you. Councilor Palello.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Mr. Vega, for all the information. And I think the real key takeaway here for the constituents that were asking me about this is that Solerge is opening up this summer.
yes, that's the hope. Yes,
Yeah,
absolutely.
awesome. Cool.
Yep.
Thank you.
Any further questions on this item, on medical marijuana? Chair will entertain a motion was complied with.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So moved. Aaron, do you want to do scholarship or liaison first?
I think liaison first.
Okay. And I think we all know this, and we're vetting this because the impact money comes through this committee, but we would have to forward the creation into the ordinance committee to create an ordinance. So discussion is welcome this evening, but I want everyone to understand that would be the next step if we're going to go forward.
Okay. Wasn't that established when we established the fund back in May of 2021? But okay.
I mean, you might be right.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I will, because there was definitely some confusion at that time period, because I know that we put, so all good. Yeah, happy to have the discussion tonight.
Okay.
So, a couple things. So to Councilor Jordan's point earlier, I think with Deb, with the assessors, this request for planning staff came about when looking at the rest of the fiscal year. So obviously, as we're in May right now, the idea of getting someone to be in planner 1 position would be pretty unlikely. And it's my understanding, again, that the funds have to be spent by the end of the fiscal year or perhaps encumbered, or else they go back into the fund. So I want to work with this committee in hopes that you're in favor of this position and actually work probably a new order that would look at funding for fiscal year 23. Ideally, if I knew we could do this, I would probably still put the job posting out this month. It's perfect time because Planner 1 really is a right out of college, whippersnapper, high-tech smarts, right, knows all the latest and greatest on urban planning, GIS mapping genius. Planner 1 is made for that kind of person, and obviously with graduations happening, it would be great to get a job posting out. And as we know, there's been challenges in filling these positions. So our thought, and again, to kind of keep it simple, if you will, I sent a communication, and again, happy to make sure everyone gets it, is to really just beef up and add in 3 really, points under the Planner 2 position. Couple reasons why. We feel this is much more cost effective than going out to get a consultant at over $100,000 a year to do this work. Secondly, our Planner 2 has been primarily focused on the special permit reviews for you on these. So he's very well versed in what's going on with the cannabis industry, and we've included him in most of the discussions of late to get him up to speed. Additionally, the Planner 2 also oversees staffs the licensing board, so he's very familiar with the ABCC. So it makes sense to have this Planner 2 position have this sort of liaison to state agencies. Obviously, the work of the planner 2 still needs to be done. There's not been a planner 1 in that office, I think, for a while. I believe that Curtis was a planner 1 for a little bit, and then there was turnover, and he became the planner 2. So the idea really is, and again, working with you and with Tanya and the mayor, depends how you want to look at it. Really what I'm looking to do is fund the planner 1 with cannabis impact fee money, even though the planner 2 is doing the work. So one could say, and again, I like to keep things simple, but if we look back at the way previously the senior project manager position was funded in my office, it was partially 60% from the massive motion grant and then 30 or 40% from the city. So we could do that and then take that offset, if you will, to fund the planner 1 position. So whatever works better for you comprehensively, but also bookkeeping wise. And so this is the sort of goal of the office. There is, as with most things, and I think the city included and the industry, we're building this plane as it's flying. We are spending a lot of time looking at what other cities are doing around spending the impact fee money, and working with the mayor and some city councilors. We're trying to create a process as well. And so obviously we feel that since site special permit review, the narrative, this new process for spending impact fee money, collaborating with the industry, keeping up with the regulations from the CCC, et cetera, really deserves, in our opinion, some focus, at least for the next 3 to 5 years in our office, because it basically runs through our office from the host agreement to your special permit review. And then, of course, when they're an established business in the city, we treat them like every other business as a manufacturer in the city. So we're trying to keep them in the loop with our manufacturers roundtables that are happening bi-monthly. They're a big part of the cannabis industry, is a big part of that. So in short, at this point, it does seem, again, your process, but it does seem that this order perhaps does need to be given withdrawal. And I would submit another order in the next week or two to talk about the funding for the next fiscal year. Of course, timing is going to become a little bit of an issue, right? Because July 1 fiscal year, there's a little bit of a session break I know we have the August meeting, so obviously I don't want to be spending, I would have the money, if I knew it was coming, I would hire a position and be moving money around to make sure, but that's a discussion I think we have to have, how we want to proceed on that, since fiscal year and calendar years obviously don't line up.
I have a question on item 9.
If I can just hold off for one quick second, because just so everybody knows that this transfer does have to go back, because it's not even completely filled out, and we talked about this, but this discussion, we kept this. And this transfer is actually signed by Terrence Murphy, which is still legit, but I think this mayor may want to say a few things. I think the budget process is key here, and whether it's going to be a new title or money's going in to pay an existing title, maybe the planner 1 being refilled, I think is the key with the budget. And Aaron, you're right, that needs to be in the budget, or we're not doing anything until August, which now ties up your whole summer in terms of the possibility of filling a position or doing a lot of good things, which I think you just brought to light. Mayor, before I recognize Councilor Jordan, did you want to add anything into this, or?
No, I think what Vega's trying to do is be creative to meet up with the needs of the department and the services. I'd have to revisit and look at, are we anticipating any other changes to the 23 proposed budget as far as your office is concerned? Appropriations, not?
No, we have a meeting tomorrow, so I don't know. Should I be worried?
No. What I'm saying is, I'm trying to make it work in my mind. How you're, because you want to create a planner 1 position.
I don't want to create the position already exists, so I do think that keeping the positions
or fund a planner 1 position, but not with impact fee money.
No,
because you want to use impact fee money to subsidize a current.
It all depends on how you want to look at it. It would be the same amount.
I know. Right.
And I would also say this, it is beneficial to have the, well, I don't want to bring up any other issues, sidebar issues, but it's advantageous to have the PSA union members in my office, because we're also probably going to put in a few things in the planner one saying cannabis, and probably to our principal planner's position as well, because there's no mention of cannabis in anyone's job description. And so on the planning side, the job descriptions are similar, and it's, again, like most job descriptions, perform similar related work directed to as the situation dictates, right? So we don't want to make it exclusive, but we need to make sure that we understand that, a planner one may be asked to update our GIS map regarding cannabis. We want to make sure that they don't say, well, that's not my job. So
I know that it all balances out, but it's two revenue sources.
Yeah.
And so where I have trouble making the connection is when we're budgeting, so we want to use impact fee money to supplement a planner two position that we currently raise and appropriate for through our budget.
Correct.
Right.
If it's easier, we could just say to fund the planner one position, put it in the budget.
So then I
don't know how you do that, saying because the money's not appropriate.
If it helps, and maybe Tanya's the key here, for years, HEDIC supplemented part of, maybe not these positions, but positions, one full salary in your office and one part salary. And that was actually in the budget that the mayor would present to us, earmarking the monies from HEDIC. But HEDIC could vote in advance. The problem here is these monies, I don't believe, can be voted in advance,
right,
and they have to go by the fiscal year.
So ideally, I would budget just enough for the city portion, and the difference we can anticipate impact fee revenue to plug that gap. But I wouldn't be able to do that with someone in that position, not knowing of whether or not this was going to be voted on.
That's why I think we should do the planner. Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's where I guess that's where it's getting mixed up in my head structurally, as far as how we put our budgets together and appropriations and whatnot. So
to our auditor,
Tanya,
I'm really trying to move this along quick here because this is good.
Yeah, we'll set up.
And I want to get to Kevin because I know he's got some questions.
Yep.
Tanya, is it possible for impact money to vote this year and encumber it for next year?
If you're talking about payroll, I would say no, but if you're talking about like contracted services, I would say yes.
No, we're talking about payroll.
Because if you're talking about payroll, you would have to actually do an appropriation into the general fund budget to be able to pay that person with impact fee money. Does that answer your question?
Unfortunately, yes. Councilor Jordan.
I had one procedural question is, this says to take $12,690 from the Cannabis Stabilization Fund, which I don't think we've actually,
Yes.
Has that been funded?
Yes.
Yeah.
It has already been funded?
Yes.
Oh, interesting, because
it was established in May of last year, had to be done before the end of last fiscal year to ensure, because you cannot put money into a stabilization fund in the same calendar year that funds come in.
Okay.
So knowing that the way we collect our impact fee money is at the end of the calendar year, so I couldn't wait till July of 21 to establish the fund, because none of that money that we just got this last month would be in there, and we'd be increasing that $1.6 million transfer you got to look at.
I see. So how much is in there right now, if you recall, approximately?
3.5 minus, so just about 2 million.
2 million.
Yeah.
And so the proposal that we'll be seeing from the mayor pretty soon in his letter was the 1.6, so that'll be added to the 2 million.
It'll be like 3.6.
So it'll be 3.6. Okay, very good. All right.
We let's just make sure that's impact fee. So impact fee that we received this calendar year from last calendar year, because again, this is working on calendar years.
Okay.
Right? Because we say, what did you sell in 21? Give us a check. And this is in the packet that you will, I think there's another order from you and something we've already been working on before you had the order about the financial narrative. Very proud of the work we did here. Canna Provisions, $122,000. True Leaf, $161,000. Holyoke Cannabis, $198,000. Dazed, $29,000. And our favorite, GTI Rise, $1.6 million.
Great.
They sold $55 million worth of cannabis.
I just saw this today. This just came out, so I do appreciate. I look forward to reading this.
Absolutely. And I have to, don't want to sidebars and the other stuff, but thanks to John Dijak, obviously in my office, but also thanks to all the other departments. We put together a core cannabis group that meets monthly.
Okay.
So the auditor helped us gather these numbers. The treasurer, who is very busy, and tax collector helped us with us. You'll
Okay.
see in there some of the stuff about property values increasing and also back taxes that we've gotten back.
Yeah.
So
I look forward to, and
a lot of
I'll
departments.
follow up with any questions.
absolutely.
But this was really well done.
Thank you.
The detail. So if the Reader's Digest version of what the colloquy you guys just had is that hold off on 9 for this fiscal year, add it to the budget process, and we'll figure this out for July 1st.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Very good.
So where we're left, and I think it's more procedure, Aaron, than it is anything else, is as far as this year goes, with item number 9, we just have to return it,
Yep.
transfer it to the auditor.
Yep.
There's nothing we can do. It's not even completely written out.
Yep.
So I would suggest on item number 9, we just return it to the auditor for accounting purposes.
Yep. So moved.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Discussion, has been heard twice now on the creation, and it's more of finding a way, if the city council and the mayor agrees, to use impact money for positions in your office.
Yep.
So I think we can say complied with.
Yep.
And
no, 10,
I
yeah.
think, no matter what we said, we can't guarantee
Yep.
you down the road, you'll have enough votes to say yes. But I think it is compatible, and I think it's something that is worth exploring.
Would it require an ordinance change?
Well, that's what I thought, but
But he
if
felt the position, no,
if you create the position, it's gonna require an ordinance.
We're not creating any.
but just
But if
changing the
it's-
duties.
Just adding those 3 bullet points.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, all right, so now the question is, you need to make the pitch to the mayor to add it to the budget, and if he approves that, when your departmental budget comes up, that's when we'll have this, we'll pick up this discussion at that time for July 1st. But it's no new bodies.
No.
No.
You're
Well,
just
it would
adding
be-
duties to.
It would be a planner 1 at some point because there's no one in that position now.
I see.
But
I didn't fund
there
the
is a
positions there.
position on
There is
the
a
books,
position.
just not funded.
Got it. Okay.
Right.
Okay.
Do you feel we need to add, how detailed is the job description for a planner 2? Do we need to add those points to the ordinance, or do you think it's just as the department head, you can do that?
Oh, that's
Are they union positions?
We get approval from the union. I don't know if our job descriptions are. That's a good question. I don't know if they're in the ordinance, but they're in.
If they're union,
they're
you may
union.
have to go
I've
to
dealt
the
with the
union.
union. We dealt with the union when we changed
Yeah.
the senior project manager position a little bit
Yeah.
because we weren't making them the mass motion coordinator. So yes, we've been working with the union and personnel when we do those.
Okay, so I think we had a good conversation. I think this order's complied with.
Item 10, comply with?
I think the mayor, did you want to say something, or?
I was, so it's removing, it's a marijuana stabilization account, we're moving funds out of a stabilization account. Wouldn't it not be appropriate if you were to vote to transfer a dollar amount from stabilization to be expended between, in the fiscal year 23, so July 1 to June 30 of?
We can't do it until next year. That's what I just asked.
Well, no, that's why, because
Yeah.
I gotta confirm that,
Well-
because we did that in Blandford all the time. You put a vote on town floor for funds to be transferred out of stabilization to fund something, but you make clear what the
When it would start.
period, which is fiscal year 23, and we
We'll
wouldn't
do
spend
some-
anything.
Well, if we can do it, we still have to have it put in front of us, because this
Right.
order won't cover it.
Right.
But yes, if that's possible, I just think, and I remember Tanya telling us, not just this evening, but at the last meeting, that it's the cannabis impact money that is tightly monitored by the fiscal year. I know what you're saying, because
We're not spending it.
we do that with HEDIC. That's why I said encumbered. Maybe that's the wrong word.
Yeah.
But I know we've done that with HEDIC. I know we've done that with stabilization money, but we've never done it with cannabis impact money. So I don't know if that's the difference or not, but I'm sure Tanya and the state can answer that
we'll work-
question.
we'll
If
work
we
on it,
can
yep.
do it, that would make us a lot easier.
And
We
again,
still-
if we work with you and we get, I mean, again, I know nothing's guaranteed and everything has to go, to it, but if we work with this and it seems like a positive move, and we can set it up for that August meeting, because you do meet one time in August,
Once in
right?
August,
So
first-
if we
first
have-
Tuesday in
if we do
August.
if we do our due diligence before that,
Yep.
and get to you, okay.
Okay.
Yep.
All right, so item 10, item 9 complied, 10 complied with.
Yep.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Last one, Aaron, scholarships.
Yeah, I think
Motion to take item number
Already
11.
had the motion to take
11 off the
item
table.
11 off the table. This is the second time we've had this in front of us. We've had the preliminary discussion, but an
Yeah.
update would be appreciated.
Well, I think we're still. I think again we would give this one withdrawal, or and so we are still working with the law department, and again this is the kind of stuff that if we had someone dedicated on this could do a little bit more work on this to see if this is legal to do first of all, and to ensure, and then I think it's also an opportunity though at some point to perhaps have a presentation, probably not to this committee, but to the council or anything about what's going on at their HCC with this, because when the mayor and I were at Analytics Labs, they had 2 people hired from this company. There's a bunch of people. I would say on average, anecdotally, the average I would say is right around 30% cumulative for the companies that have Holyoke residents employed. So
I know Councilor Jordan had a lot of those questions at the
Yep.
first time we took this up, and so and this would do nothing because there's only a month and a half left
Right.
to
Yep,
use
absolutely.
it. So
Yep, so we
the motion would be we're going to return this
Return to the auditor.
Yep.
for the same reasons as just stated.
And you'll look into the whole legal
Yep,
opinion
yep, it's
issue on it?
It's
Yeah,
on
thank-
it's on our master to-do list, yes.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
All right,
If
appreciate
no
it.
further discussion.
Can I add
Councilor
something
Rivera.
to that? Just in case, I just stumbled upon a program at HCC called the CORE, Western Mass CORE program, which is for fully incarcerated individuals that are incarcerated now that are taking HCC courses while they're incarcerated. So if that funding could be used in that way, then it would make sense to kind of use the cannabis impact fees in that kind of way, because some of the people are incarcerated. You're kind of help mitigating and helping the population that supposedly was impacted the most during the mass incarceration days or whatnot. So for me, it's like trying to get more dollars to people that are currently incarcerated, trying to get their education and trying to get right. So when they come out, they're hitting the ground running versus trying to waste time to get to that level.
Absolutely. If we can do it, I think that's a great little niche for it, because I do think that a number of, as I mentioned, that a number of the industry, number of the businesses in the industry are providing some funds to HCC for scholarships, but that are general to anybody, which is fine. This one could be designated, if it's legal and able to be done, we could designate it for only Holyoke residents or for, as you mentioned, people maybe in the CORE program. So I think if it's something we can do, I think there's a lot of opportunity.
Motion to return it to the auditor as suggested.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So moved. Aaron, thank you.
Thank you. And then just the
Thank you.
last thing I'll say is
12? What do
was
we
there
have to
one
do
more?
at item 12?
We did 12, I think.
Okay, that's all set? Okay, great.
Just one last comment is so again, you have the marijuana financial narrative. I should have called it cannabis. Marijuana financial narrative for you. Happy to, when you bring that up as an order, to follow up on it. And we are working with counselors and the mayor to perfect the process for requests. So, whether it looks something similar to a CDBG or a CPA sort of process. And so we're working our little charts and, would have some kind of citizen review, obviously your review. And so we're putting that together as well, which is, again, the kind of stuff that,
I appreciate
Yeah,
that, because
good.
I had a chance to meet with the kind of impromptu meeting with the mayor over the weekend in his softball clothes. He explained a lot of things to me.
Okay, great. So we're working on this, and again, I would hope to have this. Ideally, I told the mayor it'd be great to have this set up for by September with you all, so that we could then be working with internally with departments and perhaps external organizations that do drug awareness programs, workforce development programs. We want to look at. I think you heard it referenced. when we recently sold some property, rents in this area are going up, which is great in lots of ways, but obviously, if you're a small business and you're trying to establish yourself in downtown, especially Main Street or below, it's really hard. The rents are going up. It's near impossible to find space. So if we had some way to offset that and kind of support local businesses, we saw what Hartford's doing, giving $150,000 matching grants to businesses coming into their downtown. I mean, imagine if we could do something like that, to give people some funds to build out and to get their businesses started in downtown. That could really be a win. So we'll see if those are things we can do.
Great. Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Take care. I think everybody's noticing the themes here, and we have some guests here with us this evening who, the next theme will be items found in items 12, 13, 14, and 15. We also have some guests with us online from CPA, and if the chair would ask that we entertain a motion to take these up for discussion purposes as a package.
Support, suspend the rules, take items 13, 14, and 15 for discussion.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Very quickly. Item 13 is the opinion that was requested and received from Kathleen Degan of our assistant city solicitor, that is in relation to the legal expenditure of community preservation funds. The city council received this at the last meeting, and the city council referred it here. Second is from Mayor Garcia. This is a list of historic preservation related repairs needed on city buildings, requested by Councilor Jordan and Councilor Bartley, Councilor Rivera, and Bacon back on April 5th. And the third, item 15, is that the city council work on developing, introduced by Councilor Rivera, and developing a system similar to how CPA funds are collected and dispersed with the host community monies related to the cannabis industries. I put this at the end, Councilor Rivera, because we have our CPA people here this evening, we have our assistant city solicitor here, and we have Suzanne Parker from Girls Incorporated. Welcome. I think there's, just like from Aaron Vega, we have emails that have been coming and being received, and I've said this many times, I am not the greatest email person in the world, although I think it's a wonderful way to exchange information. I just sometimes think, well, I'll stop there, because no one understands what this old-fashioned guy says when he says that. But we do welcome the information, and discussion is always good at this level. Committee, chair will entertain. Should we go right to the city solicitor and the CPA legal opinion?
Before we do that, I think item 15, Councilor Rivera said we could give a leave to withdraw.
Yeah, we could leave to withdraw that because I filed a separate order after that.
Okay.
That was
Okay.
Okay.
All right, so on item 15, leave to withdraw?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So moved. Thank you. So, to our assistant city solicitor, we welcome your opinion, we welcome your presence with us this evening. This relates specifically to it's more than just one project, but it was asked and rendered after we had questions about the Girls Incorporated project, and specifically, if I remember, I don't want to put words in Councilor Jordan's mouth, but the so-called maintenance, Mass General Law and the maintenance, and whether or not we can use monies, CPA monies, for maintenance, even under preservation type proposals. Could you walk us through this opinion?
Yes, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I want to make clear right up front that this opinion was only drafted for the very narrow issue of Girls Inc. It was in no way meant to be a cookie cutter. All these things are very fact-driven, fact-intensive, so you can't have a one-size-fits-all kind of thing. So it was just for Girls Inc. I just want to make that clear. And also wanted to let the body know that Attorney Ball and Attorney Bissonette both reviewed the opinion and were in agreement. And I'd like to let this body also know that when I was reviewing the material, there were two things I wanted to make sure I was concerned about. One was the possibility of a 10 taxpayer suit. And I think that you guys, I'm sure that you know what that is. You know, that you get 10 taxpayers and they file suit basically to try and stop the appropriation and expenditure of public monies that they think is illegal and wrong. And we certainly didn't want to have that. And I did look at the DLS informational guidelines of 2019, December. My biggest concern there was, just so you know, an anti-aid amendment type of violation. And I didn't reference that in my opinion because I'm not too sure that we have that type of violation. So going to my opinion, basically I'm indicating that yes, under Chapter 44B, Section 5, it is, we can't use CPA funds for maintenance. And of course, I looked at the definitions. And I think what is most difficult for this is that there is no case law to help us interpret what we have. And this is all interpretation. And quite frankly, as I'm sure you know, one lawyer will look at one thing, another lawyer will look at it different. So in addition to looking at the law and at its definitions, I looked at the application because we didn't, like I said, we don't have a court of law coming down on this issue. And I found the information helpful. I believe I quoted part of the summary of the engineer, which I found to be important. However, I do not know if if this body has received any additional information. I can tell you that this morning I received a letter from William Berry, who's one of the engineers, who gave, I'll say, more explanation, not just of what was being done, but how it was being done, why it's being done. That stuff is very helpful, because when you just read, you know, this is what we're going to do, this decision really, it's a matter of degrees, you know, in trying to determine whether it's maintenance or whether it's something much more. So, so I did that. And, you know, I think that's pretty much the way I went through it. I gave some examples of what could be considered not maintenance, but that was just some examples. I mean, I don't mean to suggest that these buildings have to be 100% gutted before, you know, before CPA funds can be used. Not at all. But I think the way that the information is presented helps an awful lot making a determination, number one. What you plug in to, shall we say, what's being covered by CPA funds, properly listing those is also a very important thing, which I think there were some problems with this. So that was my thinking. That's what I was going along. It's a very difficult decision. I know it's a very unpopular one. I know that Suzanne Parker, I don't know if anyone got this email either. She had mentioned something about a mediator. Quite frankly, I'm not against it. I'm just not sure how it would work. But yeah, I'm willing to discuss what, provided everyone received it. I'd be willing to discuss the information I received from William Berry today. But I hope that sets forth you with information as to how I was thinking and what I was thinking.
Thank you, Kathleen, and much appreciated the explanation. The city engineer email, I know I've seen it, but I don't think we've received it yet. And it was a little bit more broad than just it was talked about the subject, but a little bit more broad in terms of future impact, and that is specific to the project for Girls Incorporated. The Girls Incorporated have forwarded through our administrative assistant and at our request have filed it on the agenda for tomorrow evening, but the Suzanne Parker has forwarded emails for this particular discussion for the Girls Incorporated project itself. And I think it's all part of the discussion that we're having and trying to get to where we are. And I mean, in my mind, and we did take a vote on the CPA proposal. We do have Megan and Amy are both with us this evening, which I want to recognize in a minute. We did take a vote on this specific project geared to the legal advice and legal opinion from yourself, from the law department, and that vote is gone, and now hinges on the legal opinion itself. But with that in mind, I don't want to complicate this. Before I recognize committee members, Megan or Amy, would you like to weigh in on this?
I would, yeah, if I could, that would be wonderful.
Okay, the Chair of CPA, Megan McGrath Smith, sorry.
McGrath Smith, although I certainly have Sullivans in my family.
All right. Wasn't that far off.
I'll try to do my best. I work in a school, and 9:40 is way past my bedtime. All right, so I was thinking that it might make sense to outline just in general how eligibility is decided by the committee, and then the basis upon which we had found the project initially eligible. So, our process is that we ask for an eligibility application and then take 30 days to review all of them. And we do that in consultation with the State Coalition for CPA, of which we're a due paying member. So that's an organization that we can rely on to give us advice and to allow us, to have those conversations in a really detailed way where we can send really specific details about an applicant and ask, can you help us figure out if this is eligible or not? So we have that resource, and then we are, of course, using the CPA legislation from Chapter 44, and we're using the associated eligibility chart and grid that came out of that. And then we have the real foundation for us is the Department of the Interior standards for historic projects, and then, of course, the descriptions of eligibility from the Department of Revenue. So those are the documents and resources that we're using to determine eligibility. In terms of Girls Inc., it was found eligible underneath a definition that was a little bit different than what was mentioned in the current legal opinion. It was actually found eligible underneath preservation. And preservation is defined as the act or process of applying measures necessary to sustain the existing form, integrity, and materials of an historic property. Work including preliminary measures to protect and stabilize the property generally focuses upon the ongoing maintenance and repair of historic materials and features rather than extensive replacement and new construction. So, the interesting thing, of course, about historic projects is that they're way more complicated to determine eligibility for than for open space and rec projects or for even affordable housing projects because they're really complex. This is a very specialized field. And I will say that you could have a repointing project or something involving the changing and fixing of windows that could be restoration, maintenance, or repair, right? It could be any of those things. So it really depends on the context of the project, the purpose of the scale of the work. And often we're really narrowing what we say is eligible. So we might say, well, because it has to have public benefit, can only be a public building, or it has to be an exterior, right, that is within public view. And so it can only be the envelope of the building, it can only be the section of the building, right? Like we are really thoughtful about eligibility from that standpoint. And then we're also having to look at the scale of the work to determine, is this just like a repair? Or is this something that is really more extensive? So, that whole piece around, repairs are neither materially add to the value of the property nor appreciably prolong its life, but simply keep it in ordinarily efficient operating condition. And so you could look at a building and ask yourself, is this already in ordinarily efficient operating condition? Or does something need to be rehabilitated or preserved in order to add to the value of the property and appreciably prolong its life? So that's one of the pieces that we're looking at, and we're trying to determine if we think someone's just coming to us to ask for some support in repairing the building, or is this really something that is integral to the maintenance of the structure? So when we look at a project like Girls Inc., and this is a project, I will say, I mean, legal has done their due diligence, right? Their job is to protect the city from liability. Their job is to consider what is best for the city. I completely understand this is very complicated. And I think this is a law that this is completely open for interpretation. I think you can interpret it really broadly and you can also interpret it really narrowly. I think it's been more narrowly decided here. The piece that I can say from my perspective is that I'm also really familiar with all the details of every project we've ever put forward to City Council. And the piece that I was surprised about with this was that it rings very similar to me to other projects that we have found eligible, moved forward to City Council, and have seen funded. And in fact, there are 3 projects currently that I think underneath this opinion, it's a very similar scope of work, right? Or would raise very similar concerns if we were going to kind of rethink how we view eligibility around historic projects. So we have the Valley Opportunity Council Chestnut Street project, which is currently under contract, under bid, which is for exterior repair of the envelope, which involves the repointing of brick. You have the War Memorial, which is currently under contract, is moving forward within just a few weeks, which is the cleaning of the building in order to prevent its degradation. And you have Wisteria Hearst, which was just approved 2 weeks ago by City Council, which is the repainting of the building and exterior repair to the masonry of the chimneys. So in all of those projects, especially the 2 brick ones, they're so similar to me that it really does raise concerns around how we're viewing eligibility as a community and as a committee and the impact of that. I know that it's been said that it's really meant to be narrowly decided to only apply to Girls Inc., but I'm not exactly sure how that's possible when projects with a very similar scope of work have come to us in the past and we found them eligible. And also just the committee will have heard this, right? And if we're sort of moving forward with this being the new understanding, then I think every project that comes to us that's a brick repair or a slate roof repair, the committee is going to have real pause and it's going to have a hard time figuring out exactly what to do with this opinion in terms of its impact, in terms of its effect. So, I know that, Solicitor Degnan doesn't think that, 100% of a brick has to be, repointed or a slate has to be fixed in order for it to be considered capital improvement. But I think it's hard to say what percentage is considered capital improvement versus repair. When especially if a building comes to us at 70, 80, 90% or higher, needing the brick to be repointed or the slate to be reproved, that building is not going to be salvaged. It is already in so far, disrepair, as at least financially, it's going to be almost impossible to be feasible. And it's probably in such general disrepair as to just be relegated to demolition. Historic preservation and rehabilitation is often preventative work designed to keep a building from falling into disrepair. There's just so many ongoing questions, right? And we're a city with a lot of brick and slate. And we really want to be a part of this work of the rehabilitation and restoration of our city. We want to be a lever in bringing these buildings back on board and being viable economically and socially in parts of our community again versus just adding to blight. I'm also concerned about other city buildings coming to us in the future and things like the City Hall. We in the annex, we know are coming to us soon. We hope they are. And so if the City Hall comes to us, but only 20% of the exterior has to be repointed, or only 10% of the slate has to be fixed, then will we not be allowed to move forward with those projects under this type of interpretation?
Thank you, Megan, and very well said as always, and very well thought out. And appreciate the work you do and the discussion, adding to the discussion because it is important. If I can just ask the city solicitor a quick question, Kathleen, if this is to one project, the Girls Incorporated, and Suzanne Parker is here with us, What is the possibility of the Girls Incorporated reapplying for this? What would they have to do? Because, I mean, to me, a big part of what they proposed and asked for, and Megan kind of backed it up, is preservation.
And I understand, I'm glad you asked me that question, because it's going into Megan's question. No, it isn't really percentage. In help making the determination, we need more facts. And this is just, I'm going to exaggerate to make a point. You know, we're looking at shingle replacement. Well, are we replacing 10 or are we replacing 2,000? When I looked at Mr. Barry's information that we got today, he indicated exactly how and what and why they're doing it. That's very helpful, okay? He explained a lot in that piece of paper. So if we're going forward, I would think what we would want to see in our grants or in the applications that are being submitted to you, I understand you want to have something to go by. I think the more specificity in terms of what the scope of work is going to be very helpful, because we can't ban Section 5 from it. I mean, maintenance is in the law. And so, and I understand maintenance preservation, and I think that's exactly where the crux is. I think that's where things are problematic, because I can understand where you say, hey, this is preservation, and part of preservation is maintaining. But the statute says for anything, preservation, community housing, anything, it can't be maintenance. So it really was a very tricky question to answer. It really was. And I do understand and I feel for the concerns that, Megan, that you have. So I hope that maybe this might be helpful. There was one other thing I noticed that might be helpful, and I'll say it. One thing that would have made the decision easier, if the inclusion of an elevator had been put, because there's an elevator, as I understand it, was going to be put into this building. I mean, if you're installing an elevator, you're adding to, it's different. You're adding to the value, and I don't think installing something that works farther away from maintenance. I'm just giving you this as an example, hoping to help you figure out in the future, you know, to get information that would help next time, you know, so we don't have this.
Often in our applications, they're only going to include relevant information to what we are capable of funding. And because it's not eligible for us to fund an elevator, for example, they wouldn't include that information. But you're right, that the scope of the work is really important. And often there's back and forth between us and applicants, or we'll come up with a list of questions in committee, and then our staffer will send that or meet with the applicant and then get more information as we're trying to figure out things just like you mentioned. Because maintenance, of course, if you're just painting a door frame, sure, it can't be considered part of preservation. But like with Sterryhurst, it's about the scope of the work, right? This is, wow, we're gonna start really having some significant damage to the building if we don't repaint it, and it's not currently within our municipal budget to do that, right? And so what can we do in this larger capital improvement of the building? And the Girls Inc. project, I think, is a $3.2 million project, right? Of which we're only $150,000. So we're a piece of it, but again, our funding source is very restricted. So only a piece of it was eligible.
See, and I think that I probably, had I had more information as like what was given to me today, it would have made a difference. I mean, I can tell you that. I don't know if you have seen the latest piece of information from William Barry. Maybe you have you?
I did.
Okay, yeah, I found that to be helpful. And I'm hoping that other applicants can give that kind of specificity, I hope.
It's possible the fears of our committee around this being precedent setting are not rectified, and perhaps the committee just needs to see this opinion more in the context of the documents we use for eligibility, because I think there are going to be a lot of questions around how do we apply this moving forward, not so much moving back, but moving forward. in terms of like, where is this in the context of the Department of Revenue, definitions we're using, or where is it in the context of the Department of the Interior's definitions that we're using?
Yeah, well, and I've looked at all those documents too, and like so many things, when you're just dealing with language and nothing else, one lawyer will interpret it one way, another lawyer will interpret it another, and that's why I keep mentioning specificity, because it's just that maintenance in there that's in that sentence is what makes it very, very tricky. But I don't want your commission to be concerned or scared or moving on. I would be willing to help. If you've got applications right now that are coming forth for determination on whether it's going to be funded, if you want to look through that, I certainly would, because there's more than just maintenance here. We do have to watch out for an anti-aid amendment. And, like I said, I don't think that exists here, but we have to look at it because it's illegal. And that's the first thing. When you see public money, CPA monies, going to private entities and property not owned publicly, those are like the first two factors in the anti-aid amendment statute. I think what helps us here is it is for a public purpose, I think. I mean, that's what I got from what I read. So I'm not piling on or putting another issue on it, but those two things, maintenance and anti-aid, we really have to look at, and I'd be more than willing to help to any extent that I could to make the burden less.
Chair, recognize Councilor Jordan.
Okay. Thank you. Obviously, I have supported Girls Inc. through numerous CDBG things and over the years, and it's a great organization. I obviously am pretty well known now to not be in favor of giving them CPA, but if it makes them any consolation, I'm not in favor of other private organizations receiving any of these monies. This was pitched to the citizens of Holyoke as necessary funding to cover projects that the city could not afford. That was the whole point behind CPA. That was the advocacy, not to make public tax donations to private organizations. And we heard this night, we've already given them a $35,000 per year donation by giving them free taxes for life by their purchase of this building. We're already out that. God bless them. Enjoy the $35,000 per year. I'm sure you'll put it to good use. But we have been very kind in and of itself. Now, I'd like to talk to a number of the legal issues here. And by the way, this opinion doesn't address all the legal issues because there's more legal problems beyond maintenance. The first one I want to talk about also is the fact that it's important that the city follows things that it publishes out there and says that these are the rules that we follow. I wanted at some point to understand how the Holyoke Historical Commission has a memorandum on this exact topic. And that hasn't seemed to have come into any of the discussion here. In it, they say that it is the Holyoke Historic Commission's opinion that CPA historic preservation funds should only be granted to interior spaces that are public spaces or spaces that are regularly open to the public. Well, we don't have either here. It doesn't, clause 1, is this an interior space that's being proposed by Girls Inc. proposal? No, it's an exterior. They're talking about making roof repairs, cleaning of the facade. So the Historic Commission has outlined the rules around how the CPA is to guide the funds relative to the Community Preservation Committee. So that hasn't happened. So this is supposed to be for interior spaces. I don't know if the CPA committee is aware of this memorandum from the Historic Commission. Because, by the way, you're supposed to have Historic Commission approval in order to even do these projects. Now, this building, I'm told, although it isn't on the State Registrar of Historic Places, apparently I was told by the law department that in November, the building was designated as historically significant. So it does meet that potential criteria by the Historic Commission, but that's only one of the requirements. You also have to be an interior space. This is not an interior space. That never made it to the memo. I'm not, the law department did a great job on the maintenance issue, but we got to address that too. So we don't have an interior space, so that's an X mark. Second point, this is not a public space. It's not a space that are regularly open to the public. Okay? We're talking it's up on a roof. All right? Is the building even in of itself? This is a private organization. It has a membership. I can't just walk in there and start playing basketball or walk in the halls. It's not regularly open to the public. Regularly open to the public is a playground. City Hall has no limitations. We don't offer membership cards to come down to City Hall. It's totally, in my opinion, absolutely excludable. Right there. Have a nice day. Nothing else to talk about. Yes, we're getting into the semantics about maintenance. It's an interesting topic, no doubt. But that is not dispositive to the issue. And I also don't think the city should be getting into mediation. That's new information. This is the other thing that you're getting into now of why we don't want to do this with private organizations, giving out our tax money to them in this regard. Because now, are they going to turn around and sue us because, their lawyer that they've now hired says it's, this is maintenance or not maintenance, and we say it is maintenance or who knows what. Now, every day, another memo comes in that they're changing what the application said to say, oh, and by the way, I know we didn't say this in the application, but here's some more information. I don't know, are you allowed to keep changing your application? So we're getting into a lot of different issues here. This is why you don't want to do this. This money was supposed to be for public projects. And the concern I have as we think about the future and what really is the problem is we're going to now have all kinds of private organizations coming for funding. So now public projects are going to be competing against private projects, for these dollars. And there's not so much money. This is not a huge pot of money to begin with. So I think we need to address the Historic Commission rules. We also need to address whether this is even good policy. And admittedly, the policy question is not a legal question necessarily, provided it doesn't go beyond on the anti-aid issue, but is it a public space? We're going to need a legal opinion on that. Because as far as I know, you have to be a member. Every citizen, if I'm, regular Joe wants to start walking through Girls Inc.'s building, is that regularly open to the public? No. It's a private organization, private club. They have their own rules. So I want to see what the CPA committee's interpretation of this historic preservation, CPA use of historic preservation fund memo and policy is. And I want to understand if the law department has read the Holyoke Historic Commission policy on the use of historic preservation funds. So, and it's right there in the middle of the whole page. Here, just what I read. It's like crystal clear. And I haven't yet seen that come into the conversation. So has the law, Kathleen, have you read that?
No, I have not. I have not had the opportunity, so I will look at it.
Please, yes, because I know you're taking new information, and I know you found the supplemental engineers report interesting. Hopefully you will also equally find this interesting. And so anyways, hopefully we all get down to the bottom of this. Megan, are you familiar with this policy? Is it the CPA committee?
Absolutely.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
So what's your opinion of it?
Yeah, so in historic, we have had two other private organizations that we have funded, the Holyoke Merry-Go-Round and also the JFK Memorial were both private groups that were funded, and also MIFA. And the other main one under recreation was a Boys and Girls Club. So all of these issues came up in that application around eligibility. And we went pretty deep on the issue. We contacted the state. We had a number of conversations with them. We had conversations with the applicant. And it was really important for us to determine that there was public benefit. And so in an open city building, right, it's very clear to determine public benefit. And in a playground, even of a private group like the YMCA and the Boys and Girls Club, it's really important to prove public benefit, which means in public view and or public access. And the access itself to an exterior of the building is perceived by the state as being, I'm walking by this building and I can see it. Thus, there is public benefit to the building being upkept and the prevention of blight. There's also, for the Boys and Girls Club, because it was a playground, we worked with the applicant to make sure that there was a certain percentage of time that the playground was open to the public, as a way of making sure that there was public benefit. So it is something that we are very aware of and that we've always worked on with applicants who were private, nonprofits or private owners to make sure that there was public benefit.
Can you address the issue of their policy that states the Holyoke Historic Commission opinion that CPA Historic Preservation Fund shall only be granted to interior spaces? Can you address that, please?
I would rather the current chair address it, who is here, I believe.
Oh, good. Okay.
I don't know if there's a way to make her a panelist so that she can speak. I know that she's been trying to raise her hand.
Megan, is it Amy or is it?
It's Paula Ferrario.
I don't see Paula.
Hang on, she might be not be in the panel yet.
Oh, there she is.
There she is down the bottom.
Paula, welcome. Hello, can you hear us?
She's muted.
Oh,
You're muted. We can't hear you. Thank you.
Can you hear me now?
Now we can.
Excellent. I'm sorry. It's also way past my bedtime, so I'll do my best. So yeah, I would like to reiterate that projects, they're not for just public places, but they're projects that the public can enjoy. So they could be, we could fund private entity, but still, if the public can benefit for it, that's perfectly okay with CPA rules. The other thing is the Historical Commission in Holyoke cannot go above the Mass Historic Commission. And Consular Jordan, actually, I was a little surprised about that memo and document. And could you tell me a little more where it came from, when it's dated, and where did you retrieve it from?
I retrieved it from your website. It's dated January 13th, 2020, and it says it is the CPA Historic Preservation Fund Project Restriction Memo Policy. And in the middle of the paragraph, third paragraph, last sentence, it states, it is the Holyoke Historic Commission's opinion that CPA historic preservation funds should only be granted to interior spaces that are public spaces or spaces that are regularly open to the public.
Yes, and we will be getting to that document, which I believe was approved in June or July 2000 and has some problematic language. But it is there now. I believe, I cannot speak for the whole committee, but I believe we are in the process of modifying it.
Okay.
So, but it is still on the website. As you know, we had a change of chair, we had change of staff, and we're getting to that. But
Okay.
as you see, and again, we had supported the Historical Commission in this process. Our truly active rule throughout is to just, in case there's a building that is not historically on the state or Massachusetts Historic Registry of Historic Places, we can deem the building historic if it is so. And then we do offer, if asked, opinion on projects and consultation, but again, our main role is to deem a building historic and then also hold the preservation restriction on a building if the project is approved. But we have seen projects like, again, the Wisteria Hirsch repainting, which it's repainting of the exterior. We had approved several projects that the War Memorial has to do with its exterior. The merry-go-round is a private project. So of course that document is at this moment faulty, and I really thank you for bringing it to our attention. I just became chair a month ago, and obviously it has to be rectified because projects that have been approved do not follow the rule, and still the Historical Commission is very committed to these other projects that have been approved.
Okay. Obviously, the rules are the rules until you change them. I would also mention that you do have a further statement in it that says no alteration shall be made to a historic resource unless they are interior changes, and the preservation restriction is for the exterior of the historic resource only. So there's supposed to be interior changes. That's another, and then it just goes on and on and on. But nevertheless.
Mm-hmm. But these are not the per se rules. They are recommendations. We do not make the rules. Massachusetts CPA and the Massachusetts Historical Commission make the rules. So those are recommendations and guidelines from the Historical Commission in the past that were uploaded.
So you're saying you get those from the state historic, is that it?
No, I think that what we have on that document, it's a recommendation of the Historical Commission that we shouldn't be making.
Sure. All right. So we're just
And I will get to it, and I really thank you for bringing it to our attention.
Hey, my pleasure. That's what we're doing here. We're trying to help. And so anyways, I would just say, though, that, this is the Historic Commission, and these are the guidelines that are being put out to the public that is allegedly city policy, and it's saying that you're not to do this. So with CPA money, but okay. So anyways, we had that issue. I think I've made my point on that. We have the maintenance issue. The other thing that's kind of interesting about the maintenance issue is once this thing, and I guess the project keeps evolving post the application, but what portion is going to the cleaning of the facade and which part is going to the changing of some shingles? And then now the engineer says, well, a portion is going to be for a part that's separating from the building, so that might be something more. And how do we apportion the $150,000? Because it seems like as you read the proposal, the repointing of various bricks that portion we say no, the cleaning, no, the shingle change, no, but now this separation part that was brought up this morning, maybe that portion is yes. I don't know. And are you even allowed to change your application after you make the application? I don't know. Is that common that we keep adding to things? I don't know. But I think this is all part of the problem that we're getting into by starting to hand this money out externally to some private groups. I can't speak to what was done before I got here over the last couple of years. Maybe through this process, we're adding some good will come of this and maybe this applicant wants to apply again and retune their application. But it would seem to me that as we look at things here, maybe we're going to take some pause to really rethink about all these rules because to Megan's point, maybe we are violating something that else is coming up. If we said, well, this is just paint work, or maybe on some of these other projects we're doing, we really should examine this to make sure that this has been thoroughly vetted. There probably should have been a legal opinion on maintenance issues, these historic preservation issues that I mentioned. Maybe this should have taken place 2-3 years ago. We're getting to it now, and maybe it was this that brought it. I raised questions, others raised questions, but we'll get there. Again, all good people involved. Everybody's trying to do the right thing here. We'll get this figured out together, I'm sure, and we'll move forward. So I do thank everybody involved. Thank you.
Chair will recognize Councilor Tessa Murphy-Ramboletti.
Thank you, Councilor McGivern. I have been communicating with folks from the law department and folks from the CPC. So I haven't been really wanting to repeat questions that I've already asked just for the sake of asking them. But I do just think that there's a difference between public access and a public benefit. And I think we've already set that precedent before by funding projects like the merry-go-round. And, I would also say that one of the big buckets of that's mentioned in the CPA is also actually housing. And as far as I know, the city is not responsible for creating housing. And so that's obviously going to fall into a private entity. So for all of that being said, I just think that the most unfortunate thing about all of this is that it almost defeats the purpose of having a board at the CPA who does their due diligence and who is appointed to do the research and to do the work. And I just think it's a very slippery slope if we're going to ask the law department to weigh in on all of these decisions. And I just think it's another level of oversight that the city council doesn't, in my opinion. We have a board for this reason. And I think when this happens, I don't blame members on the board right now if they're feeling like there's really not a huge purpose for them, because we kind of just sent them that message. And so, for what it's worth, I understand the frustration of everyone involved. And I'm a little surprised that we've spent so much time this evening talking about whether or not things are allowed indoors or outdoors, inside of a building or outside of a building, because my understanding was the main concern 2 or 3 weeks ago was that it was about maintenance. And I also just want to clarify for the record that I don't think the Girls Inc. project is continuing to evolve. I think they're providing additional clarification on things. So I thank them for that. And it's unfortunate that we've spent this much time talking about a project that would clearly be of a community benefit if we were to approve it. So for what it's worth, I'm just going to put that out there, that there is a board for a reason, and I believe that they do their due diligence. And that if we're going to pick apart every single decision that they make, we might as well just think about whether or not this board should even exist, because, that's, it doesn't really seem like we're giving them the ability to make those decisions. So thank you to everyone for the work that they've done. I know that the law department, it's not an easy black and white answer. I also know that the board at the CPC is made up of volunteers who literally just care about the community. And I'm sorry to Girls Inc. that you guys have found yourself in the middle of this. And I hope that you know that it's not a reflection on the work that you do for our community. So, I just think we should be really thinking about what we're spending a lot of time on in this body. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councilor. The chair would ask the committee to suspend rules to allow two guests from Gales Incorporated to see if they want to say anything this evening. I'm not even sure if looks like it.
I'll second that.
Motion made and seconded. Is there any discussion?
Nope, that's fine.
Thank you. All those in favor? Any opposed? So moved.
Aye.
But thank you and welcome. Please come in and have a seat. You've been listening to us, and we know the project. And it's been said, and I'll say it before we even start. This is not about Girls Incorporated.
Mm-hmm.
The legal opinion is about quote unquote maintenance. The City Council voted 12-1 in favor of the project. The CPA committee voted unanimously in favor of the project. But a legitimate question was raised, and we're trying to get to the bottom of it, and I hope we're not sending wrong or confusing messages. We just want to do what's right. But and Suzanne, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, thank you. And I just, it is way past everybody's bedtime, so I don't want to take a lot of time.
This is early for us.
I really do want to thank everybody for your dedication to the city, right? I mean, I know that every person here cares deeply about the city and what we do and who we are. We have not changed our application. Since the questions have come up around maintenance versus repairs, we found it helpful. Well, we were hoping it would be helpful to provide additional information. So that's where our architect, Elon Tierney at Kuhn Riddle Architects, reached out to the engineering company to provide additional information. The report that you had upon the original application was from a first walkthrough that they did. So this project is ongoing. We've had lots of people going through, really assessing the work, getting more information on that. So again, that was additional information we thought would be helpful based on the question that came up, like, what is the extent of the work that's being done? I can assure you when I went to when we were first looking at the building, the first thing was a neighbor who had bricks literally falling into their yard said, "Can you please, get the work done as soon as possible?" And I said, well, "I'll make it a priority to try to get the envelope of this building taken care of. It is in some serious rough shape." So that's what this is all about. Is restoring, doing the restoration work on the envelope of this building that's 150 years old, and I think hopefully the process will be more clear on the application, the kinds of information, right? So again, we're not changing our application, we're really providing additional information. We have not requested mediation. Again, knowing that there was a legal opinion, and by the way, I also am an attorney, so I really respect all of the work at the city solicitor's office, and thank you so much for going through this with us. I felt it was helpful to have additional information just to expand that analysis, and that was the spirit of that. Again, I just thank everybody for the opportunity to speak tonight. I know it's a little bit out of order to have guests do so. So I appreciate all of your work and open-mindedness to this. And again, whether this process helps other applicants know how to better prepare their application, that's great. That's a great outcome. I certainly would like to continue to see some funds for preservation of the building. I think that would certainly be helpful in getting our project done. So thank you.
And thank you. And thank you for coming down this evening and for all the good that Girls Incorporated does. We much appreciate it.
Okay, thank you.
Great. There's a couple of hands up. I just want to take a quick shot at this, and then maybe we can get to a point. It sounds like the application is still alive, and I'm not an attorney. And I'm not going to try to go out on a limb here because I know what the CPA does. They do a tremendous job. We've heard from the Historic Commission, we've heard from the CPA, we've heard from the Law Department, we've heard from Girls Incorporated. And to me, preservation is what CPA is about for public benefit. Meg, I got to tell you one thing about the JFK Memorial. The city owns it. Okay, I know it's very confusing. You cannot have a JFK Memorial without Kennedy family approval, and the Kennedy family approval comes with the guardianship of the Holyoke St. Patrick's Parade Committee, but the ownership is the city, and they work hand in hand with the city on that. And that's just no big deal, but just to make sure we're all on the same page. The public benefit of Girls Incorporated is there. Can anybody join Girls Incorporated? It's not a private club, and with all due respect to Councilor Jordan, it's a not-for-profit private organization in terms of a specific goal that owns an historic building. And that's the preservation to me. You can't have an inside that's safe. You can't have an inside that's usable if you don't have a roof to protect it. The first thing that destroys our historic buildings, whether it be Monticello Rosa Church or the Old Bud, is the loss of a roof. And you need to preserve the roof to protect the inside. This is a great project in my estimate. This is a project that the CPA vetted out correctly. This is a project that we should be doing for the greater good of the public. And I thought that's what CPA, which is governed by the state law, which is governed by the CPA preservation of the state itself. And we are keepers of not only the money that comes from our good taxpayers, but also the money that comes through the state itself that is funded back into us, that I wish it equaled, but does come close to complementing the dollars that we raise locally. So I hope with the additional information that the Law Department can relook at this and maybe perhaps take a little bit different stand so that we have a clear message to the CPA, a clear message to the counselors who asked this question. It's a legitimate question, and that we can get these types of projects properly vetted and properly going forward. It doesn't make any sense to not be able to do the wonderful things that the CPA has done over the last 2 years? 3 years now? Is that, Megan? 5?
5 years.
Wow.
This is our fourth funding cycle and our 5th year.
That's incredible, incredible. And then the work has been spot on since we began taking on these projects, and we appreciate that very much. So that's my humble opinion. It's a little bit different, but it is my opinion. And like I said, the City Council voted 12-1. The CPA voted unanimously. Let's figure out how to make this work. Now, ladies, I don't know whose hand was up first, but.
Quick question, if I may speak, Councilor McGivern. I'm sorry,
ahead, yeah.
Councilor Jordan, I went scrambling through the Historical Commission website just to make sure the document, the memo that you quote and you have, is it the Holyoke Historical Commission Preservation Restriction for Community Preservation Act Historic Preservation Fund projects? Is that the document that you quoted?
Yeah, I'm referring to yes, it was Preservation Restrictions for Community Preservation Act Historic Preservation Funded Projects. And it should be noted that it was also told to, that is the
I am relieved because I thought you were talking about a document that that document, and it's very confusing. I'm sorry. So let me clarify the document. The document does not apply for the application of project. The document applies to once a project is approved, then in order for the applicant to get the fund, they have to sign and agree to a preservation restriction.
That's right.
That will be included to the deed.
Correct.
At
I
that
agree.
point, once the building has a preservation restriction on it, then all those rules apply. So us as a historical commission, we have to go check on the building, and check that all of those things are done. So that is indeed a correct document, but it does not apply to the application. It applies to building once they're funded and once the project is executed. So of course, if a building, for instance, they want to do some maintenance, we have to approve it because, for instance, they can't, if it's a brick building, they can't paint it gray and say it's maintenance. They actually have to keep it in the state that it was when the CPA grant was approved and their preservation restriction was signed. I'm so glad we cleared that up. And yeah,
No, we haven't cleared it up. You actually made it even more strong in my favor. Let me explain why. Because what the Historic Commission is saying, this is a matter of semantics, but it comes to the same conclusion. One, you are absolutely correct that if they were to agree to take this $150,000, they are also agreeing to put a historic preservation restriction on the building. 100%. We're all in agreement. Hopefully Girls Inc. knows that. But what this document is saying is, and you guys control the process, you will not put a historic preservation restriction on unless they follow these rules. That is a condition precedent in order to comply with the restriction. Therefore, you state in here that it may not go for these purposes and that these are not allowed. You will not allow, as part of the restriction, the use, and this is why you say this in here, that the Historic Commission will not allow the CPA Historic Preservation Funds, which is the ones we're talking about, should only be granted to interior spaces. If that's your current policy, then that's ball game over right there. Now, I don't know if you're going to change the policy, but at the time that they applied, those were the rules. And you are right, you guys govern the preservation and historic restrictions, but these are the rules that your board has established for CPA, historic preservation funded projects, and the issuance of preservation restrictions.
Can I jump in? So the way that should be read is that second phrase is dependent on the first, and it's conditional on the first. So CPA's historic preservation funds should only be granted to interior spaces that are public spaces or spaces that are regularly open to the public.
Right.
So it's not saying it can't be used for exterior spaces. It's saying that if it's going to be used for an interior space, right? Because you have to determine public benefit. An exterior building, an envelope of a building, has by the state been determined as already having public benefit because it is in view of the public. But if it's going to be an interior space, that's what they're specifying. That interior space has to be a public space. The interior space has to be a space that's regularly open to the public, or it has no public benefit. So it's not saying it cannot be used for exterior spaces. It's just clarifying which interior spaces can be funded.
That does help. I could see how you could interpret it that way. I'll have to have the law department look at that. That's helpful, Megan. That wasn't the way I read it. It says here it should only be granted to inferior spaces,
That are public spaces.
Right.
It's just a continuous phrase.
But then it should have said it can be granted to exterior spaces or to interior spaces that are public spaces. It doesn't mention the allowance of exterior spaces at all. It's saying, maybe it's just not well written, but again, like all of this, it's subject to interpretation. But that's the way I read that to be. But fair enough.
Councillor Jordan, but there is enough precedence at this point to know that it has been interpreted in the way that Megan explained throughout the 5 years?
We have a number of exterior projects that the Historic Commission has approved
Okay.
and recommended.
I'm just saying that may well be, but they may want to think about this document and how it's worded, is I guess my point. And I think we have agreement on that point, because that was the way I read that document, to say interior spaces, but if you've done other exterior, then you might want to make that more clear in the future, then that you're allowing both. But that if it is interior, that it should perhaps say exterior and interior spaces that are public. If you know
Looks like we just have more work for Attorney Deegan again.
Yes.
We'll send the document over.
Okay.
Attorney Deegan, is this project still alive? Can you enlighten us?
Well, I think that it is still alive. I don't think it has been killed. I think there are a few things that we have to go through, including what Councilor Jordan and Megan and Paulo were just discussing. And I want to let you know, the only reason I had my hand raised, I remember someone mentioning, I don't remember what it was, something about litigation. The only litigation that I was concerned about was the 10 taxpayer litigation. I don't see litigation coming from anywhere else. There's no contract claim. There really isn't anything. But we've been asked to review the information that we've gotten, take Councilor Jordan's statements into consideration, and see about how we can come to some type of resolution on this.
Thank you, Kathleen.
Okay.
You're welcome.
Just to keep this moving a little bit quick on item 14.
Yep. So, you want me to pick up the discussion on that, Mr. Chairman?
Yeah, we need more information, I think.
Yes, I think perhaps there was a misreading of what the request was, so let me just kind of go through it again. Myself and the other co-sponsors had requested that the mayor provide the council and the CPA committee a list of historic preservation related repairs needed on city buildings such as City Hall, Wisteria-Hearst, City Hall Annex, and other city-owned buildings. Apparently, the CPA committee has no city-owned projects to support and is making requests to us for non-city-owned projects. So that was the request. So very thoughtfully, and I think we heard from Megan earlier, she gave us a list that talked about all the good work that they had done over the last 4 or 5 years. But that isn't really what I was asking for. What I was looking for was, maybe we don't have enough city-owned projects that the CPA committee can consider. So what I'm asking the mayor, and he can maybe kick this over to some of the other department heads, is, what's out there? What do you need? Where could we have and generate additional city-owned projects? Parks, City Hall. It wouldn't take much to go through 150,000 in this building. The annex, my God, you could leave not even the first floor to do that. Wisteria-Hearst, you could go on. And again,
How about the mural in this room?
the mural, right? That was a great example of that. This could need restoration, right? Mr. Santoro, who wrote this, and I believe did this mural up in 1952, would appreciate his work being preserved. So those are the things that I'm talking about. And again, not as a slight to Girls Inc. or some of these other ones, perhaps, that in my hiatus off the council, I'm fine to be if it's 12-1 and I'm the only one that has that opinion, but I do believe that these tax monies, unless Holyoke, becomes a point where we're like Long Meadow or one of these more affluent communities, and we just have dollars falling out of our pockets,
we're short. I don't know if anybody knows. We're short on money, right? We don't have to. God, I mean, we don't have the $150,000 to give you. By the way, at least I'm of the opinion we don't, because quite frankly, we're broke, and we have all these community needs. And we're in no position to be giving these monies to private organizations, not just Girls Inc., any of them, period. Once we get all of the public work done, and we got check, and that is all done, then sure, at that point where we're sitting around with a pocket of cash with no place to put it, let's start doling it out if that's still the case. But my suggestion here, as requested in item 14, is can we put together a city-owned project list so we have city public projects to give money to? Because apparently we've run out of them, and that is the request. And so I would ask that this be adopted, sent back to the mayor to do it, not to have, what was done here, and I think it's just a friendly misunderstanding of the request. So,
if I could suggest, when we did refer it to committee to full city council, we did send a copy to the mayor. If we could ask Jeff, our administrative assistant, to reach out to the mayor, DPW, and Historic Commission and ask, clarify the list of preservation projects of city-owned properties or city-owned entities that we could get that list. Is that doable, Jeff?
Yeah, I can reach out to him tomorrow.
Okay, does that make sense?
That's perfect.
We can just keep this on the table and
Yeah.
wait for it to come in.
yes, sir, that would be perfect.
All right.
Motion
Motion to
to
table item
table.
14. All those
Second.
in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Suggestions on 13. Do we give our law department some more time?
I think we table it and see what their ongoing perspective is on it, right? Or unless
I
there's a
think
better
there's been
idea.
a lot of questions on both sides of the table asked this evening, and I make a motion to table this to allow the law department to continue to look at the request for a legal opinion.
I'll second that.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Everybody, thank you so much, and it's past my bedtime too now, but we appreciate your presence, we appreciate your input. To our ladies in the chambers, we appreciate your presence and your input, and
Thank you.
thank you all.
Have a wonderful
Get
evening.
some sleep.
Motion
to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Thank
All
you.
those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So moved.
Good night. See you
Bye-bye.
tomorrow.
We stand adjourned.
See you tomorrow. Maybe not as late though.